Chapter 41-46. Looks like someone's already attacking the Jade Gate God-slaying array. Zhuowen and Duanjipeng had just emerged from a bronze door when they immediately heard the intense tremors in the main hall. Without a doubt, they knew that Mo Fengyu and the others had already gathered many people to attack the Jade Gate God-slaying array. Keep searching. We don't have much time left. Zhuowen was stern as he and Duanjipeng continued to search through the bronze doors in the west. Around half an hour later, when Zhuowen and Duanjipeng had casually blasted open a bronze door, they discovered to their surprise that there was a silver door behind the bronze door. The sturdiness of this silver door is much higher than the bronze door. Duanjipeng stroked the surface of the silver door as his face suddenly became rather grim. "Blast it open and let's see," Zhuowen said sternly. Duanjipeng nodded and then bellowed out. He clenched his right hand into a fist, and surging energy condensed in his right fist as he punched the surface of the silver door. With a thump, the silver door violently shook, and then countless cracks appeared on its surface. In the end, it completely shattered. After the silver door shattered, Zhuowen was shocked to discover that behind the silver door, there was actually another door that was shining with a golden light. Duanjipeng was stunned. Zhuowen suddenly revealed a look of ecstasy. He said rather excitedly, "Brother Duan, this should be the correct place that leads to the burial ground. After bronze is silver, and after silver is gold. If I'm not wrong, there should be a golden door behind the golden door. A sturdy platinum door. This is exactly the same as the information I obtained in the divine medicinal garden." Duanjipeng was also affected by Zhuowen's excitement. He also became wild with joy. He chuckled and became even more motivated. He erupted with great power and began to blast open the golden door. Just as Zhuowen had said, after the golden door was shattered, it was replaced by a platinum door that shone with a brilliant silver light. After Duanjipeng expended a lot of effort, he finally blasted open the platinum door. What appeared before them was a deep tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, there was a faint white light, as if an eye was watching them. "Go!" Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a bright light. The two of them quickly rushed forward along the tunnel. However, what they didn't notice was that not long after they entered the passageway, the space at the entrance of the bronze door slightly distorted. "They found it." A low voice sounded. "Don't expose yourself yet. Let's continue to follow them. These two explorers are still useful. We can't alert them now." Another calm voice sounded. The distorted space at the bronze door gradually calmed down, and the sound also gradually quieted down. Not long after, Zhuowen and Duanjipeng walked out of the tunnel. Intense white light pounced on them, causing them to involuntarily close their eyes. After they got used to it, they discovered that they were in a rather spacious inner hall. The entire inner hall was made of precious jade, and the chaotic energy inside was extremely dense. In the middle of the inner hall, there was a jade coffin suspended in mid-air. On both sides of the jade coffin, there were two balls of light. As the surface of the balls of light was filled with the power to block divine sense, Zhuowen and Duanjipeng couldn't find out what was inside the balls of light. However, the two of them didn't even need to think to know that there must be a treasure inside the balls of light. And the treasure of a cosmic Dharma powerhouse naturally couldn't be ordinary. Zhuowen and Duanjipeng looked at each other and gave each other a look. The two of them rushed out at the same time, rushing towards the balls of light on both sides of the coffin. The moment the two of them attacked at the same time, in a remote area of the inner hall, there was a distortion of space. Then, four figures split into two groups and intercepted Zhuowen and Duanjipeng. Zhuowen's gaze narrowed slightly as he took out a formation disc and tossed it out. Instantly, numerous formation markings appeared like an iron wall that obstructed the two figures. After this delay, Zhuowen had already appeared beside the ball of light on the left. With a wave of his sleeve, he collected the ball of light. Duanjipeng's movements were also extremely fast. He took the ball of light on the left first. Bang! The two figures rushing towards Duanjipeng fiercely attacked him. Suddenly, the space exploded. Duanjipeng and the two figures couldn't help but retreat more than 10 steps. "It really is you. Linlong, I still betrayed us." Duanjipeng looked at the two figures who had been repelled. His eyes were gloomy and his expression was ugly. The two figures were Linlong and his wife. They sneered at Duan Jipeng, who had an ugly expression. On the other side, the two figures were Ziyu and Shu Ju. After they dealt with the restriction that Zhuowen had set up, Zhuowen had already retreated. Ziyu and Shu Ju's expressions were ugly. They didn't think that their whereabouts would be exposed. Otherwise, Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng wouldn't have been able to take out the two balls of light before them. How scheming. Brother Zhuo, I'm getting more and more interested in you. Shu Ju smiled faintly. He landed beside the floating coffin and continued, you took away the two balls of light. Then, this coffin will belong to us. Shu Ju, aren't you going a little overboard? This is the correct path. We discovered it, and you want to steal the fruits of our labor. Zhuowen said in a low voice. Everyone knew that the most precious thing in the inner hall was actually this coffin. This coffin was suspected to be the coffin of a Dharma adept. Everyone knew how precious the things inside were. I think that you'd better not act rashly. Now, whether it's in terms of numbers or strength, you're no match for us. The wisest thing for you to do now is to leave. Shu Ju smiled faintly. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Just as the two sides were confronting each other, there was the sound of rushing wind. Then, they discovered that several figures had appeared at the entrance of the inner hall and were looking at them in surprise. Then, they saw the coffin floating in the air. They instantly understood. They immediately took out their communication jade talismans and sent out messages. However, the moment they sent out their communication jade talismans, a silver spear ghostly appeared behind them and pierced their foreheads, killing them. Not good. Mo Fengyu and the others have already entered. And they've already sent out the message. A large number of their people will be here soon. Ziyu landed on a few corpses and checked their communication jade talismans. Her expression didn't look too good after the message was sent out. Don't waste time with them. Leave immediately. Shu Ju made a prompt decision. He planned to move the jade coffin away and leave. However, a figure flashed over and appeared in front of Shu Ju. Brother Shu Ju, it's not that easy for you to take away this coffin, Zhuowen said to Shu Ju with a smile. Chapter 41-47. Boom. 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 Shu Ju's palm blasted out and the entire space resounded with the sound of thunder. A terrifying pressure swept over like a wave. Zhuowen was shocked. Shu Ju was indeed very strong. Although his cultivation was only at the peak of the ancient star transformation, his strength was much stronger than Lai Rong's. Zhuowen was not afraid. His right palm formed a fist and fiercely punched out. When the fist and palm collided, endless waves of air spread out from between the two and wreaked havoc in all directions. The two of them could not help but retreat dozens of steps. What? Brother Shu Ju is actually on par with him? Ziyu was completely shocked when she saw this scene. Shu Ju was a genius ranked 4th on the Outer Realm Heaven list. He was extremely strong and was an existence that ordinary universe tribulation experts were extremely wary of. In his opinion, Zhuowen fighting Shu Ju head-on was simply a mantis trying to stop a chariot. He was just overestimating himself. However, he'd never imagined that not only had Zhuowen blocked Shu Ju's attack, Zhuowen had even caused Shu Ju to be unable to gain the upper hand. Didn't this mean that Zhuowen's true strength might even surpass him? Shu Ju frowned slightly. He looked at Zhuowen with a trace of surprise. Although he had thought highly of Zhuowen, it seemed that he had still underestimated this person. On the other hand, Zhuowen raised his eyebrows. He was rather moved that Shu Ju was able to fight him equally. Others might not know, but he was well aware of the extent of his strength after cultivating the primordial technique. Brother Ziyu, take the coffin and leave this place first. I'll hold this person back first. Shu Ju shouted at Zhuowen. He took a step forward, took out his natal lone star, and rushed towards Zhuowen. What shocked Zhuowen was that Shu Ju had a total of 7 natal lone stars. Moreover, they were 7 stars of different colors. The 7 stars of different colors hovered in the void behind Shu Ju. They were arranged according to the Big Dipper, forming an extremely powerful formation. Zhuowen didn't dare to be careless. This Shu Ju was worthy of being called a top genius. His natal star was also extraordinary, far surpassing ordinary ancient stars. Ziyu's eyes flickered. She nodded and rushed towards the jade coffin. Don't even think about it. Duan Jipeng saw that Ziyu wanted to take away the jade coffin and shouted, wanting to stop Ziyu. Brother Duan, your opponent is the two of us. Just as Duan Jipeng was about to attack, Lin Long and his wife joined forces to block Duan Jipeng's path. Lin Long, I've always treated you with sincerity, but you've always had ulterior motives. How shameless. Duan Jipeng was trembling with anger. A terrifying aura burst out of him as he summoned his Qian Kuan world without hesitation and threw a punch at the couple. Brother Duan, don't blame us for this. After all, compared to you, whether it's Ziyu or Shuju, their backgrounds are much bigger. We can't afford to offend them, so I chose them. Lin Long and his wife's faces were gloomy. They summoned their Qian Kuan worlds as well. The power of calamity spread out and turned into an ocean that swept out and rushed towards Duan Jipeng. Boom! When the two sides collided, the momentum that erupted was extremely terrifying. Even though the inner palace was sturdy and solid, it was still shaken by the aftermath of the collision. Traces of cracks even began to appear on the surface of the inner palace. While Duan Jipeng and Lin Long and his wife were fighting, Zhuowen and Shu Ju were also fighting fiercely on the other side of the inner hall. After Shu Ju brought out the lone star of the Big Dipper formation, Zhuowen also brought out his star domain. Stars floated around Zhuowen. With him as the center, they began to rotate rapidly in an elliptical orbit. Zhuowen purposely separated a portion of his stars and charged towards Ziyu. Terrifying energy surged forth like a tide. Ziyu's purple eyes flickered with coldness. He also summoned his natal star and blasted it towards Zhuowen's. Ziyu had a total of 6 natal stars that emitted a strange purple color. Each purple star was connected by a purple rainbow. From afar, it looked like a purple string of beads. Ziyu's right hand formed a seal. The 6 stars connected by the rainbow whizzed out like a whip. They actually blasted away all the stars that Zhuowen had sent flying. However, there were a lot of stars that Zhuowen was afraid of. Ziyu blasted open a part of them, but another part immediately filled in and continued to entangle Ziyu. She couldn't leave the inner hall for a while. You're really arrogant. You actually diverted your attention to care about others when you're fighting me. Shu Ju's gaze was cold. The 7 stars of the Big Dipper were like a hot knife through butter. They instantly broke through Zhuowen's astral domain and went straight for Zhuowen. At the same time, Shu Ju's right hand clenched into the air. A silver spear appeared in his hand. Then he suddenly shot it at Zhuowen. The moment the silver spear shot out, the space around it suddenly distorted. Then the silver spear disappeared into thin air. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He waved his right hand and a star appeared a few meters away from him like a loyal bodyguard. He knew very well that the silver spear in Shu Ju's hand was extremely extraordinary. It was a divine weapon that could travel through time and space at will. Whoosh! A strong sound of the wind being torn apart resounded from behind Zhuowen, and then he noticed to his shock that a silver spear had flashed out from the distorted space behind him, and it didn't slow down at all as it pointed directly at the center of his back. Bang! However, Zhuowen's reaction was fast enough. He immediately controlled the star that he had prepared to block behind him. The spear and the star collided fiercely. In front of the huge star, the spear was as small as an embroidery needle. However, this needle-like spear actually exploded with an extremely shocking power, shattering the huge star in one fell swoop. The silver spear emitted a sacred silver light. It was like a rainbow piercing through the sun as it continued to shoot towards Zhuowen. However, with the interception of that star, Zhuowen once again controlled many stars to form an extremely tight defense in front of him. But it was the impact of the silver spear that caused his mind to be slightly disturbed. The other stars that were entangled with Ziyu revealed an opening. Ziyu naturally saw this flaw. He waved his right hand in the air. The purple stars were like a purple whip that suddenly flew out. It immediately pushed back many of the stars that were in the floor. He turned into a purple shadow and charged forward. He quickly rushed towards the only passageway in the inner palace. Chapter 41-49. Then where is the real tomb? Duan Jipeng was even more confused. Zhuowen smiled and said, when the real is fake, the fake is also real. Sometimes, the distance between the real and the fake is not so far apart, and the location of the real tomb is hidden in this inner palace. Duan Jipeng was stunned and immediately showed an incredulous expression. He thought that the flowing flame heart was too big to put the real and fake tombs in the same place. However, after thinking about it, he felt relieved. The most dangerous place was the safest place. When the fake tomb was discovered, even if the discoverers knew that the tomb was fake, they would naturally ignore this place completely. It was impossible for them to think that there would be a real tomb in the fake tomb. It could be said that hiding the real tomb in the fake tomb was naturally the safest and most unexpected place. Zhuowen ignored Duan Jipeng's shock and said with a faint smile, "Brother Duan, take out the thing in the light ball that you snatch." Duan Jipeng was stunned and took out a jade pendant without hesitation. The jade pendant was emerald green in color and looked like a magatama. The surface of the jade was dotted with little red patterns and emitted a mysterious feeling. Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He also took out a jade pendant from his body. It was also in the shape of a magatama and complemented Duan Jipeng's magatama. Zhuowen took Duan Jipeng's magatama and combined it with his, forming a perfect circular jade pendant. There are only two strange jade pendants hidden in the balls of light on both sides of the coffin. Duan Jipeng frowned slightly. In order to snatch these two light balls, he and Zhuowen had put in a lot of effort. However, they did not expect that there were only two jade pendants without much use. This made Duan Jipeng quite disappointed. "Brother Duan, this circular jade pendant is not only not useless, but also very useful," Zhuowen said with a faint smile. "Brother Zhuo, what do you mean?" Duan Jipeng asked doubtfully. "Because this jade pendant is the key to opening the real tomb. As long as I have this jade pendant, I have the key to opening the real tomb." Zhuowen smiled and walked to the center of the inner hall. He formed a seal with his hands, and a spatial distortion appeared in the center of the inner hall. Then, under Duan Jipeng's astonished gaze, a pure white altar half the height of a person appeared in front of him. On the front of the altar, there was a circular groove. Upon closer inspection, the groove, in terms of size and depth, was exactly the same as the circular jade pendant in Zhuowen's hand. Zhuowen's eyes flashed with excitement. It seemed that Bai Tiangong's memories were correct. All the mysteries were in this inner hall. This is the key to the real tomb. Duan Jipeng finally reacted. His eyes were filled with excitement. Zhuowen nodded and placed the round jade pendant into the groove. An ear-piercing crackling sound could be heard from the depths of the altar. Then, the altar, which was half the height of a person, sank back into the ground. Then, in the center of the inner hall, there was a circular door. It slowly opened to both sides, revealing a neat circular pit. The pit was pitch black. It was impossible to see what was at the bottom of the pit. However, the extremely dense primal chaos energy gushing out from the depths of the deep pit indicated that this deep pit was definitely an extraordinary place. "Brother Duan, let's go in." Zhuowen's eyes shone brightly. He said to Duan Jipeng and jumped down. Duan Jipeng followed closely behind. His eyes were filled with excitement. This was the real tomb. The most precious thing in the entire main hall was at the bottom of this pit. If they could get it, they would really make a fortune. Not long after Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng entered the pit, the ground above the pit closed again. At the same time, the hall surrounded by bronze doors was not so peaceful. Ziyu was already surrounded by everyone. She was in a dilemma and her face was very ugly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, 3 streaks of light rushed into the encirclement and landed beside Ziyu. The streaks of light faded. It was Shuju, Linlong, and his wife. "Gongzi Shuju, you came at the right time. I think you should have obtained the coffin of that Dharma plane expert. You should also know that good things need to be shared with everyone. It won't be good if you keep it to yourself." Mo Fengyou's expression changed slightly when he saw Shuju and the other two. He was not afraid and was still fearless. They had the advantage in numbers and their strength was not simple. He did not think that Shu Ju could escape from their hands. Everyone, I think you've misunderstood. That voice just now, I'm sure all of you have heard it clearly. That was Zhuowen's voice. Why did he suddenly shout like that? Have you not thought about it? This is a thief crying thief. The real treasure has already been taken by that kid. He shouted those words just to attract your attention and divert the trouble away from you. I think you're all smart people. You won't fall for that kid's trick, right? Shu Ju said lightly. Once these words were spoken, the crowd, who had been confident of victory, suddenly burst into an uproar. Obviously, Shu Ju's words had awakened some people. They felt that the former's words were not without reason. After all, in their opinion, Zhuowen's shout was not necessarily trustworthy. It might have been just to mislead them. Where's Zhuowen? The green-robed elder asked with a frown. He's already escaped. He's very cunning. He took advantage of the moment when all of you were focused on Brother Zio to secretly leave this hall. I think what everyone should do now is not to confront us and waste time, but to focus on finding Zhuowen. Shu Ju said somewhat exasperatedly. You should look for Zhuowen and snatch his coffin. Seeing Shu Ju like this, the crowd believed him a little more. Brother Shu Ju, Brother Zio, it's not that we don't believe you. What you said is reasonable, but we can't rule out the possibility that you're also suspicious. How about this? Didn't that Zhuowen say that the coffin is on Brother Zio? As long as Brother Zio magnanimously opens the storage artifact for us to take a look and prove his innocence, we'll choose to believe you. Then we'll go find that Zhuowen to settle the score, Mo Fengyu said doubtfully. His words instantly gained the crowd's support. After all, Zio's hesitation earlier was indeed very suspicious in their eyes. Chapter 4150. Okay. As long as you swear to the heavenly Tao that you won't touch Brother Ziyu's divine storage item, then he can open it for you to inspect. What made Ziyu's expression change was that Shu Ju actually agreed without blushing or panting. Brother Ziyu, don't worry. I only have a countermeasure. Just open the divine storage item. Just as Ziyu was at a loss, Shu Ju's voice faintly sounded in his mind. Although Ziyu still had some doubts, he still chose to believe in Shu Ju. He snorted coldly and took out a purple jade bracelet. He formed a seal and opened the restriction on the purple jade bracelet. This purple jade bracelet was Ziyu's divine storage item. When the restriction on the surface was removed, strands of consciousness immediately poured into Ziyu's storage god artifact like the tide. They began to investigate the things inside. Ziyu's expression was not very good. The divine storage item contained some of his secrets. Now that he had opened it so openly for others to investigate, he felt very embarrassed. But he had to do this. Otherwise, everyone would be angry and his life would be in danger. Hey! There isn't any coffin here. Shu Ju Gongzi seems to be right. Maybe we were really deceived by Zhuowen. The coffin should be on Zhuowen. Numerous exclaims of surprise resounded while everyone in the surroundings came to a sudden understanding, and they completely believed Shu Ju's words. On the other hand, Mo Fengyu, the green-robed elder, and some of the most powerful people still unwillingly scanned the inside of the purple jade bracelet with their spiritual senses. They scanned inside and out, not letting go of a single spot. A trace of surprise flashed through Ziyu's eyes. He couldn't help but look at the calm Shu Ju not far away and quickly returned to normal. He put away the purple jade bracelet and sneered. Everyone, you've seen enough. Now you should believe us. Faced with Ziyu's questioning, the surrounding people smiled awkwardly. It was rare that they didn't dare to refute. Ziyu's background wasn't low. If it weren't for the temptation of wealth, they really didn't want to offend Ziyu. Zio Gongzi, we've offended you. It seems that Shu Ju Gongzi is right. The real coffin isn't on you, but on Zhuowen, Mo Fengyu said sincerely. Preposterous. Does Zhuowen really think that we're pushovers? He actually dared to trick us. This time, we'll make him suffer. The green-robed elder was flustered and exasperated. The surrounding crowd was even more agitated, and they all began to curse Zhuowen. Everyone, the The most important thing for us to do now is to find Zhuo Wen, and not to curse here. Zhuo Wen's tea. We can definitely find him. Zhu quickly comforted them. After what happened just now, Shu Ju's words carried a lot more weight, and everyone quieted down. Under Mo Fengyu, the green-robed elder, and Shu Ju's orders, they began to search through the various regions of the main hall, not missing a single place. Shu Ju and Ziyu formed a small group with Linlong and his wife and spread out to search the other parts of the main hall. Brother Shu Ju, I remember that the coffin has always been in my storage artifact. How? Ziyu saw that there was no one around and asked the question in her heart. Shu Ju smiled faintly. At the instant you opened your storage artifact, my life artifact entered your storage artifact without anyone noticing. Moreover, it took the coffin with it. Ziyu suddenly understood. Shu Ju's divine spear could fly through space and time. It could indeed hide the coffin in the turbulence of space and time. Shu Ju waved his sleeve, and the space in his right hand started to distort, and then a silver spear appeared in the distorted space. Behind the silver spear, a coffin slowly appeared. Shu Ju immediately put the coffin into his storage artifact and said to Ziyu and Linlong, "We have to find a place to leave this place as soon as possible and open the coffin to check your treasure. Once Zhuowen is found, my lie will be exposed. At that time, we won't be able to leave even if we want to." Ziyu and Linlong looked fervently at the coffin that Shu Ju put away. Then they nodded heavily. They naturally knew what was at stake. They were in the same boat now. They were bound together for good or ill. So, they had to work together to leave this place. As for the distribution of land, that would naturally be decided after they left. Darkness. It was endless darkness. Zhuowen only felt that he was constantly falling. He was falling and sinking in the darkness. After he and Duan Jipeng entered the deep pit, they had been falling at a uniform speed. And the darkness in the deep pit was not ordinary darkness. In the darkness, not only was his vision pitch black, but even his spiritual sense couldn't detect anything at all. What shocked him even more was that he couldn't even make a sound. He just fell with the flow, as if there was no end. In this silent fall, Zhuowen couldn't feel the passage of time at all. In other words, in this kind of environment, time had become meaningless. The only thing that was meaningful was the distance of the falling space, and when would one finally reach the bottom and stop this kind of endless falling? Landing in the air. Discomfort. After an unknown amount of time, Zhuowen found that the discomfort of being suspended in the air had gradually disappeared. And his feet had touched the ground. In front of him, a ray of light shot in. It became brighter, and finally dispelled the surrounding darkness. Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes and looked ahead. He found that he was in a vast wilderness. In the wilderness, a dim yellow hill stood tall. Because it had been eroded by the wind and rain all year round, it was riddled with holes. Just like the wilderness, it was like an old man in his twilight years was curled up. In the center of the wilderness, between heaven and earth, there was a huge light figure that seemed to connect the heavens and the earth. It stood there as if it was looking down on this barren land. Zhuowen knew that the light that dispelled the darkness was emitted from this light figure. He could feel that the terrifying aura emitted by this light figure was like a tide. It made Zhuowen involuntarily have the urge to kneel down and worship it. In particular, the ancient and vicissitudes of life emitted by the light figure made him have the illusion that this was a god, and he should respect and love it. "This is," Zhuowen muttered to himself. He thought of an answer in his heart. "It's the cosmic Dharma idol, the cosmic Dharma idol of that expert." Sure enough, although he has fallen, his cosmic Dharma idol hasn't dissipated. At this time, an extremely excited voice sounded behind Zhuowen. Then, he saw Duan Jipeng come to his side. He looked excitedly at the huge light figure that stood between heaven and earth. "Is this the cosmic Dharma idol?" Zhuowen looked at the light figure silently. He pursed his lips and whispered to himself, "Brother Zhuo, let's go and take a look." Chapter 4151. Is this the cosmic Laksana? When Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng stopped on a hill about a few hundred feet away from the light figure, Zhuowen looked at the light figure silently and could not help but feel a little surprised. The light figure in front of them was huge. From its appearance, it was obvious that it was a shadow similar to a human. It did not have any facial features and looked very blurry. However, the moment one stared at the light figure, one could feel the lofty and distant feeling transmitted by the light figure. It was as if what one was looking at was not just a huge light figure, but a vast and boundless universe. In front of this Dharma idol, one would naturally feel insignificant and humble in his heart. Moreover, Zhuowen could sense that the figure of light before him was not material, but illusory. It was a huge statue formed from powerful laws. It was dignified, awe-inspiring, and extraordinary. The so-called Dharma Laksana is naturally the combination of Dharma and Laksana. Only after peering into the most profound laws of the universe and thoroughly comprehending them can one condense the Dharma into Laksana with one's own strength. Hence, it is called Dharma Laksana. Duan Jipeng muttered to himself. There was a hint of enlightenment in his eyes. Although it was not deep, he had a deeper understanding of the cosmic Laksana. In the past, he had been unable to condense the cosmic Laksana because he did not know where to start and did not understand the true meaning of Dharma Laksana. But now, after observing a real cosmic Laksana at close range, he vaguely grasped something. Zhuowen did not disturb Duan Jipeng. His gaze crossed the hills and fell on the place where the light figure was. There was a large basin and the cosmic Laksana stood at the center of the basin. In fact, Zhuowen could even faintly see the outline of a coffin through the boundless light. Zhuowen glanced at Duan Jipeng beside him. He did not go alone but waited silently. At the same time, while waiting for Duan Jipeng, Zhuowen was also looking at the cosmic Laksana. Perhaps because Liu Yanhua had fallen, the cosmic Laksana seemed extremely illusory, as if it would collapse at any time. Although Zhuowen only had the ancient star transformation, it was beneficial for him to observe the cosmic Laksana at close range. It might be helpful for him to condense the cosmic Laksana in the future. After about 30 minutes, Duan Jipeng slowly opened his eyes and said in a deep voice, "This cosmic Laksana should have been severely damaged. The many Dharma Laksana flowing in it seem somewhat chaotic and irregular. Brother Zhuo, this cosmic Laksana is very important to me. Can you give it to me? As for the other things, I don't want them all." At this point, Duan Jipeng of the cosmic Laksana and looked at Zhuowen with anticipation. The universal law doesn't have much use for the current me. Brother Duan, you can take it. As for the other things, let's split them 50-50. After all, it was you who provided me with the information that allowed me to come to this tomb. One should never forget their roots. Zhuowen smiled slightly. He didn't want to take advantage of Duan Jipeng. If it weren't for Duan Jipeng, he might not have known that there was a tomb here. Duan Jipeng was stunned, but then he said seriously, "Brother Zhuo, what are you talking about? This cosmic Laksana is already extremely precious. It's comparable to the other treasures left behind by Liu Yanhua. If I split it with you, wouldn't that be isn't that too much?" However, Zhuowen was a person who wouldn't change his mind easily. Therefore, although Duan Jipeng felt a little guilty, he finally agreed to Zhuowen's suggestion. "Let's go. The owner of this cosmic Laksana has fallen and become an ownerless object. However, this is a genuine and powerful Dharma Laksana. Even though it looks a little broken now, its power is still not to be underestimated. Brother Zhuo, when we get close, be careful," Duan Jipeng said with a serious expression. Zhuowen nodded heavily. The two of them began to approach the huge light shadow. When they were about 100 feet away from the cosmic Laksana, their expressions changed slightly as they felt an extremely terrifying pressure. It was the pressure emitted by the cosmic Laksana. As the Dharma flowed, it formed a terrifying storm of Dharma laws. 5 elements Dharma, spacetime Dharma, thunder Dharma. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly, especially when he felt the Dharma laws surging on the cosmic Laksana. There were all kinds of Dharma laws. He was really shocked. The so-called cosmic Laksana naturally requires all the Dharma laws in the universe to condense a real Dharma Laksana. Therefore, if you want to condense a cosmic Laksana, not only must you understand all the Dharma laws in the universe, you must also master the law of condensing a Dharma Laksana. Duan Jipeng saw Zhuowen's surprised expression and patiently explained to him. I only understood this after my cultivation reached the peak of the heaven and earth calamity. Although I have understood all the Dharma laws, I still can't fully grasp the law of condensing a Dharma laksana. Duan Jipeng smiled bitterly. Be careful. Suddenly, Zhuo Wen's sharp eyes discovered several thunder-attributed laws flying over from the front. He immediately shouted, Stop! Duan Jipeng reacted and used his movement technique to dodge the attacks of the thunder Dharma laws. At the same time, he also stirred up his divine power to build an extremely powerful defense around his body. Moreover, Duan Jipeng even took out his universe world just in case. Brother Zhuo, enter my Qian Kuan world. Duan Jipeng said to Zhuo when as he opened the Qian Kuan world for Zhuo when to enter. Duan Jipeng's universe world was much stronger than ordinary experts of the heaven and earth calamity. Although the chaotic storm of Dharma laws around the cosmic Laksana was terrifying, it was unable to break through the defense of Duan Jipeng's universe world in a short period of time. Boom! 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 The storm of Dharma laws bombarded the surface of the universe world, causing terrifying and ear-piercing explosions. It was like countless firecrackers exploding, extremely ear-piercing. Under such bombardment, Duan Jipeng's universe world shook violently and was on the verge of collapse. However, it was very strong and did not break because of this. Of course, due to the obstruction of the storm of Dharma laws, the speed of their advancement was greatly affected and was as slow as a turtle. As expected, the real coffin of flowing flames is in this Dharma Laksana. Chapter 41-52. After a few hours, the two of them finally arrived at the center of the Dharma idol and landed beside the white jade coffin. The laws here were even more chaotic and violent. Duan Jipeng was trying his best to resist the storm of laws. His face was slightly pale, and cold sweat kept breaking out on his forehead. Brother Duan, can you still hold on? Zhuowen asked worriedly when he saw that Duan Jipeng was struggling so much. It's fine. Brother Zhuo, put away this coffin first. Moreover, I was going to absorb the essence of the laws in this cosmic idol. Once I completely absorb this cosmic idol, I should be able to completely grasp the law of condensing cosmic idols. This is nothing to me. Duan Jipeng gritted his teeth. Zhuowen looked at Duan Jipeng with pity. The latter still had to stay in this cosmic idol for a long time. When the time came, he would have to endure tremendous pain. I'm worried that Duan Jipeng won't be able to endure it. However, the path of cultivation was never easy. If you wanted to advance bravely, you had to endure pain that ordinary people couldn't endure and pay a price that ordinary people couldn't bear. After Zhuowen put away the white jade coffin, Duan Jipeng activated the Qian Kuan world and sent Zhuowen out of the range of the cosmic idol. Brother Zhuo, I'll leave the things in this white jade coffin to you. I'll absorb this cosmic idol first. I need to go into seclusion for a while. After Duan Jipeng finished speaking, he entered the cosmic idol again. However, this time, he didn't enter the deepest part. Instead, he sat down cross-legged at the top of a hill in the periphery and began to absorb the essence of the various laws in the cosmic idol. Zhuowen shook his head. It seemed that Duan Jipeng really couldn't wait to condense the cosmic idol. He didn't even want to take a look at Liu Yang's coffin. Zhuowen came to an empty valley and took out the coffin again. The white jade coffin in front of him was much better than the fake coffin that Xu Ju and the others had snatched, whether it was in size or the exquisite relief on the surface. Moreover, an extremely terrifying pressure was emitted from within the white jade coffin. That pressure was far stronger than a peak expert like Duan Jipeng. Zhuowen knew that this should be the pressure that belonged to the universe's Dharma laws. Although Liu Yanhua had died, he was still an expert of the cosmic Dharma. The pressure that he unconsciously emitted after his death was also extremely terrifying. Ordinary cultivators would not be able to resist it. Furthermore, there were many mechanisms and restrictions inside the coffin. Zhuowen's lips curled into a smile as he said, if an ordinary person were to open this coffin, it would be very troublesome. However, it's not difficult for me to open it. This was because Bai Tiangong was one of the core participants in the construction of the coffin. Bai Tiangong knew the structure of the coffin very well, and Zhuowen, who had inherited Bai Tiangong's memories, had no difficulty opening the coffin. In addition, after Zhuowen had cracked the Jade Gate God-slaying array, his array skills had once again advanced by leaps and bounds. He had already reached the peak of the first heaven of the eternal level. Therefore, the many restrictions in the coffin did not cause any trouble for Zhuowen. About an hour later, Zhuowen had completely cracked the complicated restrictions on the surface of the coffin. Ka. A strange sound came from the coffin. It was a bit like the sound of old gears turning. Then, pieces of crystal-clear white jade protruded from the surface of the white jade coffin. More and more white jade appeared, causing the size of the white jade coffin to continuously increase. The speed of this increase was increasing exponentially. In less than a quarter of an hour, the size of the coffin, which was originally only 100 feet in size, had increased by 100 times. In front of Zhuowen's eyes, it had turned into a huge white jade palace that was 1,000 feet in size. Huang Xiaolong had to admit that the person who had built this coffin was ingenious. He was able to piece together so many pieces of white jade into such a huge palace. Moreover, he was able to shrink it to the size of 100 feet. This was the result of using the space law to the extreme and being proficient in various array principles and mechanisms. Zhuowen silently walked into the palace. He knew that the moment he cracked the coffin's restrictions, there were no more traps or dangers inside the palace. Inside the palace, precious top-grade chaos spiritual veins could be seen everywhere. These spiritual veins were like swimming snakes, shuttling back and forth inside the palace, causing the chaos energy inside the palace to reach the peak. With a casual wave of his hand, he could easily liquefy a large amount of chaos spiritual liquid in his palm. Other than that, Zhuowen even saw powerful divine artifacts in the passageways. The lowest grade among them was Heavenbreaker 8th Order, and the highest had even surpassed the Heavenbreaker 8th Order. Of course, there were very few divine artifacts of this grade. Other than that, there were also many high-grade divine herbs that were stored in certain side halls of the palace. Zhuowen went deeper into the palace, and finally stopped at the deepest part of the palace. In the deepest part of the palace was a spacious hall, and at the end of the hall was a throne that stood on top of white jade steps. At this moment, a stalwart figure was sitting quietly on the throne. This was a middle-aged man with white hair that reached his shoulders. He wasn't handsome, but he was pleasing to the eye. His features were well-defined, and he had a unique temperament. Just like that, he sat quietly on the throne, calmly looking at the front. The moment Zhuowen stepped into the hall, his eyes met the white-haired man's, and his expression changed slightly. He felt a terrifying pressure invading his body through his eyes, causing his face to distort and cold sweat to trickle down his back. Zhuowen hurriedly turned his head, no longer meeting the white-haired man's gaze. The terrifying pressure finally dissipated, and his expression returned to normal. This person should be that Liu Yanhua. Zhuowen didn't dare to look at the white-haired man. His gaze fell on the white-haired man's body as he muttered to himself. He had inherited Bai Tiangong's memories, so he naturally knew what Liu Yanhua looked like. Moreover, he also knew that Liu Yanhua had completely fallen, and even his soul had been destroyed. The thing in front of him was merely his corpse. Zhuowen slowly walked towards the throne, but his heart was beating extremely fast. He was very clear that the most precious thing hidden inside the coffin wasn't the boundless top-grade chaos spiritual veins, divine artifacts, or divine herbs. Instead, it was the information about the ruins where Liu Yanhua had lost his life. Since a cosmic law realm expert like Liu Yanhua was willing to risk his life to protect this information, it was clear that the ruins were extraordinary. Chapter 4153. Zhuowen searched the inside and outside of the White Jade Palace 3 times. What made his expression turn unsightly was that he didn't find any clues about the ruins. The ruins were Liu Yanhua's most precious secret, and he had never mentioned it to anyone else. Even though Bai Tiangong had once served Flowing Flame and was at his beck and call, he still didn't know this secret of Flowing Flame. Zhuowen knew that relying on Bai Tiangong's memory was no longer reliable. If he wanted to find clues about the ruins, he could only rely on himself. However, he had already searched the entire White Jade Palace several times, but he did not find anything. Could it be that Liu Yanhua had destroyed the information before he died? Zhuowen returned to the hall deep in the palace, his eyes revealing a thoughtful look. Suddenly, his eyes looked at the figure sitting on the throne in the depths. I think I neglected this place. Zhuowen had an idea. His eyes slowly became hot as he looked at Liu Yanhua's corpse sitting on the throne. In the entire White Jade Palace, the only place that had not been searched was the throne where Liu Yanhua's corpse was sitting. At first, Zhuowen did not care, but now he had to. He took a deep breath and cast out his natal lone star. One after another, huge stars began to revolve around him in different trajectories. After taking out his natal lone star, Zhuowen was still not at ease. He took out several array discs, all of which were defensive arrays at the first firmament of the eternal level. Xiaohei, I'll have to trouble you. At the same time, Zhuowen also took out the Taiyu sacred sword, which hung close to his body. Xiaohei lay lazily on the Taiyu sacred sword and looked speechlessly at the cautious Zhuowen. It's just a corpse. Do you have to be so careful? Xiaohei said with contempt. It's better to be safe than sorry. After all, this flowing flame is an expert of the cosmic Dharma. Although he has been dead for some time, who knows if he has left some tricks up his sleeves? Zhuowen ignored Xiaohei's disdain and spoke seriously. Xiaohei curled her lips, but did not say anything. However, a serious glint flashed across her black eyes. Zhuowen slowly approached the throne, his vigilance at its highest. However, he was surprised to find that nothing had happened even after he arrived in front of the throne. Kid, look. Xiaohei shrugged, her words carrying a hint of mockery. You're the one who's being overly paranoid. Flowing Flames didn't have any backup plans. Zhuowen also breathed a sigh of relief. He reached out and began to search Liu Yanhua's body. He knew that if Flowing Flame hadn't destroyed the information about the ruins, he must have carried it with him. After a while, Zhuowen noticed that Flowing Flames was wearing a thumb ring on his left thumb. He took off the ring and observed it for a while. Then, he said happily, this ring should be Flowing Flame's storage artifact. At the same time, Zhuowen discovered that Flowing Flame's body began to emit a blazing golden light before dispersing into countless spots of light. Zhuowen spent a lot of effort to break the restriction on the ring. Then, he probed into the ring with his divine sense. The space inside the ring was very large. It was obviously an extremely high-level storage artifact. The amount of resources inside was even more than the palace. Zhuowen was almost dazzled. He suppressed the ecstasy in his heart and began to carefully search the space inside the ring. Soon, he found a mysterious piece of black gold paper in the ring's space. This piece of black gold paper wasn't complete. Instead, it was damaged. It was about 1/5 the size of a complete piece of paper. What shocked Zhuowen even more was that the aura emitted by this piece of black gold paper was extremely powerful. It was actually not inferior to the aura emitted by Duan Jipeng when he was at his peak. Zhuowen took out this piece of black gold paper and discovered that there were faint blue lines drawn on its surface. The veined patterns were very complicated. However, if one were to look carefully, one would be able to tell that the veined patterns were, in essence, a special route. This should be the information about the ruins in Flowing Flame's hand. So it's just a damaged map. A thoughtful look appeared in Zhuowen's eyes. Without a doubt, the route on this piece of black gold paper should lead to the ruins. What surprised Zhuowen even more was that although the route on this map was damaged, there was a very obvious mark in the upper left corner. The mark wasn't complete. Obviously, this complete map should have been split into pieces with the central mark as the starting point. And the destination of this damaged mark should be the location of the real ruins. Just as Zhuowen was deep in thought, he didn't notice that the black gold paper in his hand flashed with a black gold light. Then, the black gold paper suddenly trembled and abruptly left Zhuowen's hand and soared into the sky. Boom! 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 What shocked Zhuowen was that the unusually sturdy dome of the White Jade Palace was easily cut open by the black gold paper. The black gold paper was extremely fast. It turned into a ray of light and rapidly escaped into the distance. Want to escape? Not so easy. A sharp light burst out from Zhuowen's eyes. He leapt up and turned into a ray of light, quickly chasing after the black gold paper. When Zhuowen caught up with the black gold paper, the latter suddenly changed direction and swept towards Zhuowen. The sharp edge of the paper was like the sharpest sword in the world, cutting towards Zhuowen's neck. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Runes appeared on his right hand and blocked the black gold paper. Bang! 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 Muffled sounds rang out continuously. After that, Zhuowen was shocked to discover that the formation markings on his palm were being destroyed at an extremely fast speed. He was completely shocked. This black gold paper was really amazing. It was so sharp that even the runes he had set up couldn't block it. Zhuowen was helpless. He took out the Taiyu sacred sword and stood on the black gold paper. Clang! The moment the Taiyu sacred sword and the black gold paper collided, a large amount of dazzling sparks flew. Hey! This paper is really tough. But if you want to compete with this Dragon Lord, I think you're just asking to be humiliated. Xiao Hei's cold laughter came from the Taiyu sacred sword. Then, the Taiyu sacred sword left Zhuowen's hand and began to unleash a terrifying storm of attacks on the black gold paper. Chapter 41-54. Boom! The high abyss sacred sword slashed out and landed heavily on the surface of the black gold paper. A string of sparks jumped out. After which, Zhuowen saw the black gold paper fall from the sky like a withered leaf. The black gold light that continuously flickered on its surface had also become much dimmer. When the array patterns bound it to the ground, the black gold paper no longer struggled too much. It only trembled for a while before softly falling into the sea of array patterns. Whoosh! Zhuowen waved his right hand and caught the black gold paper in his palm. The black gold paper flickered faintly and no longer struggled. Zhuowen heaved a light sigh of relief, and he glanced at the black gold piece of paper with a rather fearful expression. He set up a few more sealing formations before he put the black gold piece of paper away with ease. The black gold paper contained the secrets of the ruins. He would study it carefully after leaving this place. After Zhuowen walked out of the White Jade Palace, he looked at the figure sitting inside the cosmic idol and absorbing the essence of the laws. His eyes flickered. After thinking for a while, he returned to the White Jade Palace. He knew very well that Duan Jipeng was comprehending the cosmic idol during this period of time. He obviously couldn't disturb him. He might as well use this period of time to cultivate. The resources in the White Jade Palace were extremely rich. Whether it was top-grade chaos spiritual veins or divine herbs that surpassed heaven-breaking divine herbs, they were all dazzling and there were many of them. With these resources, Zhuowen was confident that he could break through again in a short time and reach the peak of the ancient star transformation realm. Zhuowen collected all the resources in the White Jade Palace and moved them to the hall in the depths of the palace. He sat cross-legged in the center and began to absorb the resources piled up around him, transforming them into his own divine power. While Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng were in seclusion, the group of people in the main hall was still searching for them. Xu Ju, Ziyu, and the others took advantage of the time when everyone's attention was on Zhuowen to quietly leave the main hall and the tomb. They stopped in a remote valley tens of thousands of miles away from the Purple Flame Sacred Mountain. Brother Xu Ju, we have obtained everything. It's time to distribute it and then return home. Ziyu rubbed her hands and looked at the white jade coffin that Xu Ju had taken out with shining eyes. Linlong and his wife's eyes were also blazing. They also couldn't wait to see what kind of treasure was inside the white jade coffin. Xu Ju nodded and didn't object. He said in a low voice, "There are some formations and restrictions on the surface of the coffin. I've been studying them all along the way, and I've finally found the core of the formation. Let's see what kind of treasure is inside the coffin first." As he spoke, Xu Ju formed a palm with his right hand, and then surging divine energy surged and suddenly descended towards the center of the coffin. Suddenly, a strange dull sound came from the coffin surface coffin. And then an invisible ripple spread out in all directions. When the ripple dissipated, the coffin regained its calm and revealed the unique luster of the white jade coffin. Xu Ju and the others' eyes burst with light. They knew that the restrictions on the coffin had been completely broken. However, Shuju frowned. He felt that the restrictions on the surface of the white jade coffin were a little too simple. Even someone like him, who only knew a little about arrays, could find the core of the array. This didn't seem to be in line with how a cosmic Dharma practitioner would protect his own coffin. However, he didn't think too much about it. Instead, he slowly opened the lid of the white jade coffin. When the lid of the coffin was lifted, a beam of light soared into the sky, and a terrifying energy spread out. Not good. It's a trap. Leave quickly. Shuju was the first to react. He didn't even think about it. He took out his silver spear and used the spear's power to escape into spacetime. Ziyu's reaction wasn't slow either. The moment Shuju shouted, she immediately turned into a purple light and quickly retreated. Linlong and his wife were blinded by greed. Not only did they not listen to Shuju's words, but they also opened the coffin completely to investigate. Boom, boom, boom. The moment the lid was opened, the terrifying energy inside the white jade coffin exploded and completely enveloped Linlong and his wife. Apart from that, the terrifying explosive energy spread out in all directions with an unstoppable momentum. Its speed was extremely fast. Ziyu, who had already retreated, was actually caught up by the explosion. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood and her face turned pale. Ziyu's eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. She took out a purple tortoiseshell and summoned it. The tortoiseshell suddenly became huge and protected Ziyu inside. The explosion's momentum was too terrifying. It could be described as earth-shattering. Countless mountains, trees, and creatures within a radius of thousands of miles were annihilated in the explosion. Cracks appeared on the ground, forming abyss after abyss. Terrifying life-devouring magma surged out and soared into the sky. The entire scene was like the end of the world. This terrifying explosion completely alarmed countless cultivators who were still searching for treasures in the tomb thousands of miles away. They rushed out like a swarm of bees. When they saw the terrifying explosion in the distance and the doomsday-like scene, they were dumbstruck. What a terrifying explosive energy. What the hell is going on? Everyone was at a loss. In their opinion, such a terrifying explosion was enough to tear apart an ordinary Great Tribulation expert. Most of them would have died if they were caught in it. Mo Fayu, the green-robed elder, Fu Di, and the other experts were also attracted. They also looked at the explosion in the distance with shocked eyes. When the explosion completely ended, they saw two dying figures falling to the ground at the core of the explosion. They hurriedly went over and found that the two figures were Linlong and his wife. At this moment, Linlong and his wife's bodies were about to collapse from the explosion. Blood gushed out from the cracks in their bodies. Their eyes were in a state of shock and horror. Everyone knew that Linlong and his wife probably wouldn't survive because their souls were torn to pieces in the explosion. It would be difficult for them to come back. Crack, crack. Not far away, a purple tortoiseshell shattered and was annihilated in front of everyone's eyes. A wretched purple-haired youth fell out of the tortoiseshell. Brother Ziyu, are you okay? Fu Di, Ji Anshan, and the other geniuses on the realm beyond realm immediately rushed over to support the seriously injured Ziyu. Compared to Linlong and his wife who were on the verge of death, Ziyu's condition was obviously better, but his injuries were also extremely serious. Damn, it's actually fake, so ruthless. Ziyu stammered and then simply fainted. Chapter 4155. What's going on here? Mo Fengyu, the green-robed elder, and the others came forward. They observed the dilapidated surroundings, their eyes full of confusion. Fu Di shook his head. I'm not very sure what happened either. Brother Z, you should be the only witness. But his injuries are too serious and he's unconscious. Just as everyone was in a state of confusion, the space nearby began to distort. A figure holding a silver spear slowly stepped out of it. This youth wore a silver mask and held a silver spear. He exuded an indescribable sense of mystery. He was Shuju. Brother Shuju, so you're here. Do you know what happened just now? Fu Di supported the unconscious Ziyu and couldn't help but ask Shuju. All the cultivators present focused their gazes on Shuju. Ziyu and Shuju were together. Now that Ziyu had fainted, then Shuju should have been nearby when what happened just now happened. If they wanted to know what had happened, Shuju should know. Shuju clutched his chest. Traces of blood seeped out from under the silver mask. He hadn't come out unscathed from the terrifying explosion just now. Sigh. We got a fake coffin. Shuju sighed softly. Everyone was shocked, especially Mo Fengyu and the others. They stared at Shuju with narrowed eyes. Shuju's words undoubtedly showed that he had already obtained the coffin. And what Zhuowen had said back then wasn't a lie. And they had only been fooled by Shuju. Gongzi Shuju, it seems that you've hidden a lot of things from us. It's better if you tell us now. Otherwise, even if your background isn't weak, we won't let this matter rest. Mo Fengyu said indifferently. Shuju naturally sensed that the gazes from the surrounding people had become sharp and unfriendly. He knew that if he didn't give them an explanation, they wouldn't let this matter rest. The reason why he mentioned this matter was mainly because he suspected that Zhuowen might have already known about the location of the tomb. This was because after they left the inner hall, Zhuowen did not come out. Instead, it was as if he had evaporated into thin air. There was no trace of him at all. Shuju was extremely intelligent and immediately connected the dots. If he told the truth, not only would he be cleared of suspicion, but he would also be able to draw everyone's attention to Zhuowen, and he would be able to rejoin the search for Zhuowen. It's like this. Shuju slowly explained everything that had happened in the inner hall, as well as the details of them sneaking out to open the coffin. Everyone revealed shocked expressions when they heard this. They never imagined that the coffin that Shuju and the others had obtained would actually be fake. Moreover, there was even a terrifying trap within it. Although some people had doubts in their hearts, they didn't doubt it too much. After all, Shuju, Ziyu, and the others had paid a heavy price. Linlong and his wife were on the verge of death from the explosion. Ziyu was seriously injured and unconscious. Even Shuju's injuries were not light. Some people even rejoiced that they hadn't participated in the team that had snatched the fake coffin. After all, snatching the fake coffin was a thankless task. Gongzi Shuju, why are you so sure that Zhuowen can find the real tomb? Mo Fengyu finally asked the question in his heart. Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng were the same as us. They were also in the inner hall. After we left the inner hall, they didn't come out. At that time, I returned to the inner hall, but I didn't see the two of them. Then the answer is very clear. The two of them didn't leave the inner hall at all. Perhaps the real tomb is in the inner hall. Also, besides the fake coffin, there were actually two balls of light in the inner hall. However, those were, Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng respectively took the two balls of light. I suspect that the secret to entering the real tomb is in those two balls of light. Shuju methodically analyzed. Mo Fengyu, the green-robed elder, and the others all nodded inwardly. Shuju's analysis was reasonable. Gongzi Shuju, you have to lead the way this time. We will follow behind you. I don't think Gongzi Shuju will object, right? Mo Fengyu grinned coldly. Shuju looked at the covetous eyes of the people around him. He also knew that Mo Fengyu's request was to prevent him from sneaking away again. He couldn't refuse, so he nodded. Haha, Gongzi Shuju is a straightforward person. Then Gongzi Shuju will lead the way first. Mo Fengyu laughed. Shuju nodded and said to Fu Di behind him, take good care of brother Ziyu. If anything happens to him, I think you won't be able to explain it to Xiling Domain. Fu Di quickly nodded. They knew a little about Ziyu's identity, so they naturally didn't dare to neglect him. Under Shuju's lead, the group of people once again entered the main hall of the tomb in a mighty array. After entering the main hall, Shuju went straight to the inner hall. Although the inner hall was large, it couldn't accommodate so many cultivators. Therefore, only the stronger cultivators could enter. As for the other cultivators, they could only wait outside for news. The inner hall is already in such a state. It seems that the battle before was quite intense. The green-robed elder looked around at the cracked surface of the inner hall. He couldn't help but frown. Shuju turned a deaf ear to him. Instead, He continued to investigate every corner of the inner hall, not letting go of any details. Finally, he stopped at the center of the inner hall. He gently stroked the ground in the center. If I'm not wrong, the circle in the center of the inner hall should have been opened before. Perhaps there is a passageway below, Shuju said solemnly. Mo Fayu, the green-robed elder, and the others followed Shuju's finger and observed carefully. They indeed saw a thin circular crack in the center, like a circular door that was tightly shut. We'll know once we blast it open. Mo Fayu was rather impatient. His right hand formed a fist. Terrifying calamity power condensed in his fist. He punched the ground in the center. Boom! There was a terrifying explosion. Then a terrifying wave of chi swept out in all directions. Then, everyone was shocked to find that Mo Fayu was sent flying with a grunt. His entire body was embedded in the dome of the inner hall. The circular outline in the center of the inner hall didn't move at all. There wasn't even a crack. Chapter 4156. Bang! Mo Fengyu jumped down from the dome in a rather sorry state. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were filled with both shock and anger. He had not expected that his all-out attack would not only fail to shatter the ground in the center, but that he would end up in such a sorry state. Everyone, let's attack together. I don't believe we can't break the ground in the center. Mo Fengyu's eyes were gloomy. His suggestion immediately received everyone's approval. Anyone who could gather in the inner hall had the strength of the great tribulation of heaven and earth or the cultivation of the great tribulation of heaven and earth. Under Mo Fengyu's leadership, they gathered all their divine power and, with a roar, blasted the ground in the center. Boom! 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 Continuous explosions rang out, and even more terrifying shockwaves swept out. The entire inner hall could not withstand the terrifying shockwaves and directly collapsed into ruins. But what stunned everyone was that, even though the entire inner hall had been destroyed into ruins, the ground in the center was still as undamaged as a mountain. How is this possible? Shuju also revealed a look of disbelief. The ground in the center was too sturdy. Their group of strongest cultivators had joined forces and still could not cause any damage to it. I don't believe it. Again, Mo Fengyu's face was gloomy. He once again led everyone to attack the ground in the center. Time and time again, their joint attacks were all in vain. Some cultivators were even injured and coughed up blood because they were unable to withstand the rebounding shockwaves. Don't waste your energy. No matter how many times you attack, you shouldn't be able to break the ground in the center. It should have been strengthened by that cosmic Dharma powerhouse. That's why it's so sturdy. If that cosmic Dharma powerhouse hadn't come in person, we wouldn't have been able to break it. No matter how many times you attack, it won't help, Shuju said with a frown. Then what do we do? Are we going to give up just like that? The green-robed elder was very dissatisfied. Shuju said indifferently, will Zhuoan and Duan Jipeng stay in the tomb for the rest of their lives? They will come out eventually. Can't we just wait for them to come out? Mo Fayu, the green-robed elder, and the others looked at each other and nodded. They felt that Shuju's suggestion was not bad. All they had to do was wait. No matter what benefits Zhuoan and Duan Jipeng had obtained, as long as they caught the two of them, wouldn't the opportunity on them be theirs? After everyone had reached a consensus, they surrounded the main hall in 3 layers, making it so that not even a drop of water could trickle through. After doing this, they all hid their figures. As long as there was any movement in the main hall, it would not be able to escape their detection. Time gradually passed. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Zhuoan slowly opened his eyes. There were not many resources left around him, but his aura had become even more vast and terrifying. Crackle! Zhuoan stood up, and the bones in his body actually emitted a muffled sound filled with strength. I've finally reached the pinnacle of the ancient star transformation. Zhuoan clenched his fists, his eyes filled with excitement. Although he had only advanced by a small level, his strength had still undergone a huge qualitative change. He could feel that with his current strength, even if he faced Mo Fayu, the green-robed elder, and the other pinnacle experts of the Great Tribulation of Universe, it would not be so easy for them to kill Zhuowen, even if he could not defeat them. In addition, Zhuowen had many trump cards on him. The pinnacle experts of the Great Tribulation of Universe, such as Mo Fayu and the Green-Robed Elder, were not as much of a threat to him as they were at the beginning. When Zhuowen stepped out of the White Jade Palace again, he found that Duan Jipeng was still sitting in the cosmic aspect. However, Duan Jipeng was no longer sitting on the periphery of the cosmic aspect. Instead, he was sitting in the core position of the cosmic aspect. Moreover, Zhuowen also keenly noticed that the light of the laws intertwined on the cosmic aspect was much dimmer than it had been 3 months ago. Obviously, the essence of the cosmic aspect had been absorbed by Duan Jipeng in the past 3 months. He knew that when all the essence of the cosmic aspect had been completely absorbed by Duan Jipeng, perhaps Duan Jipeng would have the opportunity to condense the cosmic aspect. Next, Zhuowen did not go into seclusion again. He had just broken through, and it was unlikely that he would break through again in a short period of time. Moreover, he had a premonition that if he broke through to the Great Carefree Realm, the resources he would need would be absolutely unimaginable. His harvest in the tomb could be said to be extremely rich. If it were an ordinary cultivator, it would be enough for him to cultivate to the Great Tribulation of Universe. However, Zhuowen had a premonition that these resources might not be enough. Moreover, half of these resources belonged to Duan Jipeng. This was what he had previously agreed with the latter. Therefore, Zhuowen was not in a hurry to break through again. Instead, he began to focus on alchemy and array Dao in addition to cultivation. Especially in alchemy, his level was only at heaven-breaking level 9, which was far below array Dao. This was also why Zhuowen had focused on array Dao some time ago. With the help of the enigmatic ancient book Heaven Patching Catalog, his array Dao had advanced so quickly. Now, because the Heaven Patching Catalog was incomplete, his limit was only at the peak of the first heaven of the eternal level. If he wanted to break through again, he had to find a more powerful ancient book of array Dao, or find the complete Heaven Patching Catalog. Otherwise, it would be difficult for Zhuowen to advance further in array Dao. As for alchemy, because Zhuowen had inherited by Tiangong's memory, the latter's alchemy and array Dao had both reached the first heaven of the eternal level. Therefore, Zhuowen wanted to break through to the first heaven of the eternal level in alchemy in a short period of time. Next, Zhuowen began to frantically refine the first heaven of the eternal level divine pills. As long as he could successfully refine them, his alchemy would smoothly enter the first heaven of the eternal level. Of course, it was very difficult to refine a divine pill of this level, even if Zhuowen had by Tiangong's memory and experience. Fortunately, he had harvested a large number of divine herbs this time, most of which were of the first heaven of the eternal level. Therefore, this gave him the capital to squander. After a month, Zhuowen had wasted dozens of cauldrons of pills. He finally succeeded on the last day. Zhuowen stood up and slammed his right hand on the pill cauldron in front of him. Suddenly, the lid of the cauldron was lifted, and a 7-colored rainbow shot up into the sky. Above the vault of heaven, a rainbow-like long bridge appeared, spanning across the horizon. Following that, an extremely rich medicinal power filled the whole world. Zhuowen looked over and found that at the top of the 7-colored rainbow, there was a thumb-sized 7-colored pill. This rainbow-colored pill flew through the air like a free fish, galloping between heaven and earth without the slightest scruple. Zhuowen silently watched the 7-colored pill play, and the corners of his mouth revealed a smile of excitement. The 7-colored pill was called the 7 Ultimate Young Divine Pill. It was a healing divine pill of the first heaven of the eternal level. It was considered a primary divine pill of the eternal level. But even this primary divine pill of the eternal level was enough to make many experts of the great calamity of universe fight over it. Chapter 41-57. Zhuowen waved his sleeve, and the 7 Ultimate Yang Restoration Divine Pill flew back to his palm. It touched Zhuowen's palm intimately. After all, the 7 Ultimate Yang Restoring Divine Pill was an eternal grade divine pill with a unique spirituality. It naturally knew that Zhuowen was its creator and had a deep sense of dependence on him. After putting away the 7 Ultimate Yang Restoration Pill, Zhuowen frowned slightly. He could not help but look at the huge cosmic form in the middle of the mountain range in the distance. At this moment, the cosmic avatar had become dim and lifeless. The countless laws surrounding the cosmic avatar had become so thin that they were almost undetectable. Boom! All of a sudden, the huge cosmic image suddenly collapsed. Due to the loss of control, the laws formed a terrifying storm of laws that wreaked havoc in the endless mountains. Boom! Boom! Terrifying explosions rang out continuously, causing Zhuowen's expression to change drastically. He kept the white jade palace and immediately flew backwards. When he retreated tens of thousands of miles away, he saw that the mountain range where the cosmic form was had completely collapsed and turned into an illusory ruin. Not good, Brother Duan, Zhuowen's expression changed. He hadn't expected such a change to happen to the cosmic image. Thinking about Duan Jipeng still in the core of the cosmic image, he couldn't help but panic. After the terrifying storm of laws weakened a lot, Zhuowen took a step forward and arrived at the mountain range that had already turned into ruins. The towering mountains had long been shattered into countless pieces of rocks. In the center of the mountain ruins, there was an incomparably deep pit. It was pitch black, and it was impossible to see how deep it was. Ha ha ha. So that's how it is. So that's how the laws of the universe work. I finally understand. In the depths of this incomparably deep pit, an unrestrained laughter resounded from within the pit and spread throughout the entire world. After that, Zhuowen saw a rather miserable figure slowly fly out from the depths of the pit. His face was filled with the excitement of great enlightenment. He was, of course, Duan Jipeng. Duan Jipeng obviously also noticed Zhuowen, who was not far away with a worried look on his face. He hurried to the latter's side, unable to stop smiling. Brother Duan, have you condensed a cosmic form? Zhuowen asked tentatively. Duan Jipeng shook his head and said, No, I just understood the essence of the cosmic form and mastered the final laws. Now, it is no longer a problem for me to condense my own cosmic form, but it will take a long time. It will take some time. This place is not very suitable. Zhuowen nodded. He felt happy for Duan Jipeng in his heart. After all, Duan Jipeng's strength would be of great help to him. Brother Duan, this ring contains half of the resources in the coffin. Zhuowen took out a sparkling green thumb ring and handed it to Duan Jipeng. Duan Jipeng took the ring with a trace of hesitation and shame in his eyes. To him, a cosmic form was already the best treasure. He had obtained Liu Yanhua's cosmic form and mastered the laws of condensing cosmic forms, which was already a great advantage for him. Now, he had to share half of the tomb's resources with Zhuowen. He was indeed a little embarrassed. Although he had the intention to refuse, after seeing Zhuowen's resolute gaze, he knew that if he were to refuse, then a crack might appear in his relationship with Zhuowen. Brother Zhuo, it's really been hard on you. Duan Jipeng accepted the ring with a grin and no longer said any nonsense. It's about time we leave. However, I think Shu Ju and the others have already discovered that what they took was a fake coffin. If we go out, we might be intercepted by many people. Zhuowen said helplessly. He knew very well that whether it was Shu Ju, Mo Fengyu, or the green-robed old man, they would not easily give up the treasures in the tomb. They must be waiting outside for the two of them to appear. When the time came, they would gang up and attack them. Duan Jipeng sneered. Brother Zhuo, if it was before we entered the real tomb, I would be afraid of Mo Fengyu, the green-robed old man, and the other experts of the Great Tribulation of Universe. But now, it should be them who are afraid of me. Zhuowen looked at the confident Duan Jipeng in surprise. It seemed that although the latter had not successfully condensed a cosmic form, he had also obtained a lot of benefits, greatly increasing his battle strength. Brother Zhuo, let's go. I'd like to see if they really dare to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. Duan Jipeng was in high spirits as he stepped toward the exit. Zhuowen shrugged and followed behind Duan Jipeng. Speaking of which, he had also gained a lot this time. Ordinary experts of the Great Tribulation of Universe were not his match. If he used his trump card, even peak experts of the Great Tribulation of Universe might not be able to defeat him. The exit here was not the original entrance, but another passage. Zhuoan had inadvertently seen the internal structure of the tomb after he had obtained the white jade palace. Only then did he know the specific direction of the exit. They rushed toward the west and came to the far west. There stood a huge bronze door that was so high that it could not be reached. This bronze door was far larger than any that Zhuoan had seen before. It stood between heaven and earth, as if it connected heaven and earth. In the center of the bronze door, there was a medium-sized gap. Behind the door, there were wisps of dazzling scarlet light. Zhuoan and Duan Jipeng stopped in front of the door and hesitated. This bronze door was a little strange. They were not sure if it was the real exit. Brother Zhuo, did you make a mistake? Why do I feel that there's something wrong with this bronze door? Duan Jipeng rubbed his hands. Zhuoan rolled his eyes and said, that structure diagram should be real. This bronze door looks strange, but it's the real exit. After saying that, Zhuoan took a step forward and entered the gap of the bronze door. Soon, his figure was drowned by the scarlet light behind the door. Duan Jipeng smiled embarrassedly and hurriedly followed. The moment he entered the gap, Zhuoan's eyes were filled with a scarlet color. He discovered that the surroundings were incomparably bright blood-red rivers. These blood-red rivers were like vigorous pythons as they whistled through the surroundings and flew wantonly. The entire space was filled with a rather pungent and dense smell of blood. Zhuoan remained unmoved instead, and he ceaselessly descended along a crystalline and translucent staircase. His footsteps were orderly, regular, and even. Duan Jipeng frowned slightly. The smell of blood in the surroundings was too strong. Even he felt uncomfortable. However, when he saw Zhuoan walking forward as if nothing had happened, he did not say anything and silently followed him. Chapter 41:58. Brother Duan, the blood river and the stench of blood around us are just illusions. Don't fall into it. Zhuoan suddenly stopped and turned to look at Duan Jipeng, whose eyes were slightly bloodshot, with an extremely serious expression. Duan Jipeng, whose eyes were originally bloodshot, was stunned when he heard Zhuoan's warning. Then, he quickly calmed down. The scarlet in his eyes gradually faded. When he looked at his surroundings again, although the river of blood was still raging, the choking smell of blood had disappeared without a trace. Brother Zhuo, thank you. Duan Jipeng smiled bitterly and hurriedly cupped his hands at Zhuoan. If not for Zhuoan's warning, he might have really been affected by this illusion. At the same time, he was even more impressed with Zhuoan. The latter's cultivation was only at the ancient star transformation stage, but he was actually not affected by this illusion at all. It was really amazing. What Duan Jipeng did not know was that although Zhuoan's cultivation was not strong, his soul was stronger than Duan Jipeng's. Moreover, he was proficient in the array Dao. When he first entered this place, he knew that there was a powerful illusion array here. Therefore, he kept his mind clear and unaffected. He was surprised that Duan Jipeng, an expert who was about to condense the cosmic laksana, had almost fallen into it. It seemed that the illusion array here was really not weak. After Duan Jipeng woke up, he kept his mind alert at all times. The illusion around him did not affect him. After about an hour, they reached the end of the stairs. When they walked out, they found that they had appeared at the entrance of a cave on the peak of the purple flame divine mountain. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As soon as they walked out of the cave, dozens of figures immediately appeared around them. Then, someone released a signal flare that shot into the sky. Suddenly, more figures rushed over from other parts of the purple flame divine mountain. Many of them rushed out from the temple on the peak of the mountain and surrounded Zhuoan and Duan Jipeng. Found them. They finally came out. Excited voices immediately sounded from the surroundings. The many cultivators surrounding Zhuoan and Duan Jipeng all looked at the two of them with shining eyes. It was as if at this moment, Zhuoan and Duan Jipeng had both become delicious steamed buns in their eyes. Ha ha. Brother Zhuo, Brother Duan, you've kept us waiting. A burst of hearty laughter came from not far away. Up ahead, a group of people slowly parted, and a young man wearing a silver mask slowly walked out from the crowd. He was none other than Shu Daytime. Behind Shu Ju was the purple-haired and purple-eyed Ziyu. However, Ziyu's face was slightly pale. Although the explosion of the fake coffin had obviously affected Ziyu greatly, he still hadn't fully recovered after a few months and was still seriously injured. He was finally out. We have been waiting for you for a long time. On the other side of the encirclement, Mo Fengyu slowly walked out with Mo Liuhua and Lu Yingying. His sharp eyes stared coldly at Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng. At the same time, Zhuowen also noticed that on the left, the green-robed old man silently walked out of the crowd. He didn't speak, but his sharp, murderous eyes represented what he wanted to say. You're really enthusiastic. Brother Zhuo and I have just come out and you're welcoming us so warmly. This Duan is a little overwhelmed by your favor. Duan Jipeng's eyes narrowed as he spoke coldly. Zhuo Wen, on the other hand, remained silent. He only looked coldly at the surrounding people, and there was no panic on his face. Seeing Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng's unhurried appearance, Xu Ju, Mo Fengyu, and the others couldn't help but be puzzled. As far as they were concerned, Zhuo Wen and Duan Jipeng were already like turtles in a jar. What they wanted to see was the two of them kneeling on the ground and begging for their lives. Then, they would obediently hand over the treasures they found in the tomb. Brother Mo, Gongzi Xu Ju, no need to talk nonsense. Get to the point. The green-robed old man said somewhat unhappily. Mo Fengyu grinned, but his smile was somewhat cold. He looked down at Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng and said indifferently, the two of you, I think you know very well why we have surrounded you. I think you've already explored the real tomb. You've already claimed it. Zhuo Wen revealed a look of surprise and said, Senior Mo is joking, right? Back in the inner hall, wasn't the coffin already taken by Ziyu? What does that have to do with us? Ziyu, who was standing behind Xu Ju, gritted her teeth in anger. Her face was red. This Zhuowen was really shameless. This guy probably already knew that it was a fake coffin. Back then, he was clearly trying to trick him. Bastard, you're really shameless. That was a fake coffin. You still have the face to say that we took it. Ziyu said hatefully. Xu Ju said indifferently, Brother Zhuo, don't pretend anymore. The coffin we got was fake, and we paid a great price for it. Lin Long and his wife also died because of it. As for you two, I haven't seen the two of you since we parted in the inner hall. And we searched the divine hall for several months but couldn't find your figures. But you suddenly appeared here today. Clearly, you must have entered the real tomb. You must have also obtained quite a lot of opportunities. Mo Fengyu snorted coldly. Now, you have no path to heaven and no door to hell. If you want to live, hand over your divine storage items, or die. As soon as Mo Fengyu finished speaking, his aura suddenly soared. Terrifying killing intent surged out like a tide. The surrounding cultivators also locked their killing intent onto Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng. Duan Jipeng narrowed his eyes and snorted coldly. A similarly powerful aura surged out and soared into the sky. It actually broke through the combined aura of Mo Fengyu and the other cultivators. Mo Fengyu's pupils shrank. He looked unnaturally at the terrifying Duan Jipeng and said in a low voice, You've transcended the great calamity of universe? As soon as these words came out, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They naturally knew what Mo Fengyu meant. Didn't that mean that Duan Jipeng had already condensed a cosmic dharma and become a supreme expert of cosmic dharma? If that was the case, then they were no match for this person. Even if so many of them joined forces, they were no match for a cosmic dharma. The difference was too great. No, he hasn't condensed a cosmic dharma. He should only be a beginner and has grasped a little of the laws of dharma. He's still a long way from condensing a cosmic dharma. Xu Ju narrowed his eyes and suddenly spoke. Chapter 41:59. Duan Jipeng glanced at Xu Ju in surprise. He hadn't expected Xu Ju, whose cultivation wasn't high, to be able to see something from him. However, what Xu Ju didn't know was that he hadn't just grasped a little bit of the law of condensing the cosmic idol, but had grasped all the laws. In addition, Duan Jipeng had also absorbed all the essence of the laws left behind by Liu Yanhua's cosmic idol. If he wanted to condense the cosmic idol, it wouldn't be difficult at all. He just needed time. Shuju's words made the originally nervous Mo Fengyu and the others heave a sigh of relief. Their expressions returned to normal as they stared greedily at Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He looked around and realized that there were too many cultivators surrounding them. Although he had a lot of trump cards, he was now surrounded by so many cultivators. Moreover, there were true experts like Mo Fengyu, the green-robed elder, and Shuju. It was likely that both sides would suffer. Zhuowen glanced at Duan Jipeng beside him. He couldn't see any nervousness from the latter. Although he knew that Duan Jipeng had benefited a lot from Liu Yanhua's cosmic idol, he didn't know how much his strength had increased. Regardless of whether Brother Zhuo and I have entered the real tomb or not, this tomb is an ownerless item. Whoever takes the treasure naturally has the ability to do so. Don't you have any morals by snatching it like this? Duan Jipeng said coldly. Morals? What a joke. If it weren't for us, you wouldn't even have the right to enter the Snowflame Valley. Now, you've taken the treasure of the tomb for yourselves, and you still have the nerve to talk about morals with us. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Mo Fengyu said angrily. In that case, let's fight. You guys can join forces. I'd like to see which one of you can snatch the treasure from my hand. Duan Jipeng waved his sleeve and didn't say anything else. Monstrous battle intent burst out from his eyes and soared into the sky. Zhuowen had planned to join the battle, but Duan Jipeng's voice transmission stopped him. Brother Zhuo, leave everything here to me. Enter my Qiankuan world first. Duan Jipeng's voice was very serious. Zhuowen silently looked at the serious Duan Jipeng behind him. After thinking for a while, he nodded and entered Duan Jipeng's universe world. A terrifying pressure surged out from Duan Jipeng's body and a huge universe world emerged from the void behind him. Except for the geniuses on the outer world heavenly list, all the cultivators below the great carefree realm were suppressed by this terrifying pressure. Their bodies stiffened, and it was difficult for them to move. Their eyes were filled with shock. What a terrifying pressure! Even a peak expert of the great calamity of heaven and earth would not be able to possess such a terrifying pressure. Mo Fengyu, the green-robed elder, and the other experts of the great tribulation of Qiankuan had ugly expressions, but they were no longer as fearful as before. Duan Jipeng was indeed stronger than the peak of the cosmic tribulation, but so what? As long as he did not condense a cosmic Dharma idol, they were not afraid at all. Let's get rid of him together. Mo Fengyu shouted and was the first to rush out. A terrifying aura surged out and a huge Qiankuan world phantom appeared behind him. At the same time, Mo Fengyu grabbed at the void with his right hand, and a golden staff about 10 feet long appeared in his palm. He suddenly struck out with his right hand, and the staff shot out like lightning. It immediately transformed into countless staff shadows, like a tsunami, and blasted toward Duan Jipeng. Mo Fengyu's attack seemed to have set off a chain reaction. The green-robed elder and the other experts of the great calamity of Qiankuan also attacked, and they all summoned their own universe worlds. Because they all knew that Duan Jipeng might not be simple, they joined forces and attacked with all their strength, trying to defeat Duan Jipeng in the shortest time possible. The green-robed elder waved his sleeve, and a green formation appeared in the void. Green sword light burst out from the formation, and like a rainstorm, they blasted toward Duan Jipeng. The other experts of the great calamity of Qiankuan also used their various magical powers. For a moment, multicolored light filled the entire purple flame divine mountain. Because it was too dazzling, even the sky was dyed multicolored. It looked very strange. The terrifying energy shockwaves were like waves that filled the sky, sweeping out in all directions in a ring-shaped state. Poochie! Poochie! Many of the surrounding cultivators could not dodge in time and were hit by the shockwaves. They all vomited blood and were sent flying. Some unlucky cultivators were even directly blown to smithereens because they were too close. Not even their bones remained. Shuju and Ziyu did not attack. They strolled away from the battle group and stood on a mountain peak in the distance. They silently watched the terrifying collision that was unprecedented in history. At this moment, Fu Di, Ji Anshan, and the other geniuses of the outer realm heavenly ranking were silently following behind Shuju and Ziyu. After Shuju returned, he had become their leader again. Therefore, since Shu Ju did not attack, they could not interfere. Although they were not weaker than ordinary cultivators of the Great Calamity of Qian Kuan, there were several peak experts of the Great Calamity of Qian Kuan in the battle group. If they interfered in a battle of this level, it would be harmful. Brother Shu Ju, why aren't you attacking? With your strength, presumably, you also have the qualifications to compete with these people, Lai Rong said ambiguously. The black-robed elder beside Lai Rong, who was always by his side, was not here. He had already been sent to participate in the siege of Duanjipeng. His strength was not particularly strong to begin with. In addition, his injuries had not completely healed, so it was impossible for him to participate in that terrifying battle group. However, Shu Ju and Ziyu were different. They were both in the top 5 of the Outer Realm heavenly ranking. They were terrifying geniuses who could fight against peak experts of the Great Calamity of Qian Kuan. They were completely qualified to join that battle group. Do you really think that the man surnamed Duan beside Zhuoan is so easy to deal with? I only said half of the truth just now. This man surnamed Duan has yet to condense a cosmic Dharma idol, but his strength is infinitely close to it. He's an expert. Even with so many people attacking him, I'm afraid we might not be able to suppress him. Shu Ju smiled faintly. What? Brother Shu Ju, why didn't you say it earlier? Lai Rong frowned slightly. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fishermen benefit. If I said it earlier, how could I be the fisherman? Shu Ju sneered. Lai Rong was rather angry. In order to snatch the treasures in the tomb, he had sent the black-robed elder who was in charge of protecting him. Now, he realized that Shu Ju had taken a chess piece that would cause both sides to suffer. How could he be happy? Thinking of this, Lai Rong wanted to secretly send a voice transmission to the black-robed elder and ask him to temporarily leave the battle group. Chapter 4160. Brother Lai Rong, this is a plan that we worked so hard to execute. We can't let it be ruined because of this. If you call back that old fellow, I can tell you with certainty that you'll be on your way before that old fellow returns. Ziyu looked coldly at Lai Rong. Those mysterious purple eyes were already filled with ferocious killing intent. Seeing those purple eyes filled with killing intent, Lai Rong's body went soft. His original intention to send a message was immediately extinguished. He knew Ziyu's personality very well. She was a lunatic who kept her word. If he really sent a message to the black-robed elder, Ziyu would really kill him, regardless of whether he was a genius of the newer clan or not. After all, Ziyu's background was much greater than his. Even if she killed him, the newer clan might not necessarily stand up for him. Why should he do such a thankless thing? Lai Rong's expression was ugly. He stood silently to the side, his eyes filled with resentment. Hey, Lai Rong, you look like you're not convinced. Ziyu grinned at Lai Rong. Convinced? How can I not be convinced? Lai Rong said through gritted teeth. Boom. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying and earth-shattering explosion came from the distant battlefield. Invisible sound waves spread rapidly in all directions in the form of a ring. Many cultivators could not help but cover their ears, their faces filled with pain. Shu Ju, Ziyu, and the others stood on a mountain peak and looked into the distance. They were all rather curious about the outcome of this extremely violent collision. Many cultivators subconsciously believed that Duanjipeng was dead for sure. No matter how strong he was, how could he withstand the combined attacks of so many Great Tribulation experts? In the battle, the dazzling brilliance had already been annihilated. Then, an incomparably huge light figure appeared between heaven and earth. It was mighty and extraordinary. The light figure exuded an ancient and terrifying aura. On its surface, dense patterns of laws surged. It looked very solemn. And in the center of this light figure, Duanjipeng stood tall with a calm expression. The dozen or so Great Tribulation experts who had been besieging Duanjipeng under the lead of Mo Fayu and the green-robed elder were all pushed back by the recoil. They were all in a very sorry state. Cosmic aspect. Didn't they say that this guy hadn't condensed his cosmic form yet? Why does he have a cosmic Dharma idol? Mo Fengyu was shocked. He stared in disbelief at the enormous light shadow that surrounded Duan Jipeng. The aura of this light figure was too vast. It was as boundless as the ocean. It was a cosmic form. However, upon closer inspection, one could see that this cosmic Laksana was slightly dim. Although its aura was terrifying, it was slightly ancient and did not seem as vigorous as a newly formed cosmic Laksana. Brother Shuju, what's going on? He clearly hasn't condensed his cosmic form yet, so why did he use it? In the distant mountain peak, Ziyu's purple eyes were also shocked as she looked at the huge Dharma image in the distance. She was also in a daze. Shuju frowned slightly, and he seemed to be lost in thought as he said, "This isn't his cosmic projection. I've seen a true cosmic projection, and it's one that's filled with vitality and spirit. However, this Dharma form was lifeless and dull. Clearly, it was obviously, this cosmic projection is incomplete. Its true owner has already fallen." "You mean that this cosmic projection was actually obtained by this person from the tomb, and it's also the cosmic projection of the tomb's owner?" Ziyu blinked. "It should be. Otherwise, a true cosmic projection would have been able to destroy all the other Great Tribulation experts in one blow, except for Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder," Shuju said indifferently. After Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder had put some distance between them and observed for a while, they had also discovered some clues. "This isn't his cosmic projection at all. It's much weaker than a true cosmic projection. Everyone, don't be afraid. If we join forces, we should be able to defeat him," Mo Fengyu shouted. After receiving Mo Fengyu's reminder, the originally timid experts also noticed that Duan Jipeng's cosmic projection was different. They all secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then, under the leadership of Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder, they once again joined forces to attack Duan Jipeng. This time, no one dared to be careless. They all took out their own trump cards. Duan Jipeng narrowed his eyes and took a step forward. The huge cosmic projection seemed to merge with him. It moved in unison with his step. Boom! The cosmic projection punched out with its right fist. The air exploded, space collapsed, and time reversed. With a single punch, the entire world seemed to tremble. Its power was terrifying. Mo Fengyu, the green-robed elder, and more than a dozen other Great Tribulation experts also used their own abilities and trump cards. Their attacks were also extraordinary. Boom! 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 The two sides once again clashed. More than a dozen figures flew around the huge cosmic projection, constantly launching their own attacks. Multicolored light was once again released around the cosmic projection. This time, because they had used their full strength, the cosmic projection was indeed somewhat affected. The light on its surface had also dimmed a little. Mo Fengyu, the green-robed elder, and the others were overjoyed to see this. They knew that the cosmic projection was not complete, and its power was not as terrifying as they had imagined. They had a chance to defeat it. Duan Jipeng narrowed his eyes, but he did not panic. He calmly controlled the cosmic projection. This cosmic projection was naturally Liu Yanhua's. He had absorbed the essence of the laws of Liu Yanhua's cosmic projection and was extremely familiar with the laws of Liu Yanhua's cosmic projection. He used the essence of the laws he had absorbed to create a temporary cosmic Dharma idol. However, this temporary cosmic projection was not his own. It was Liu Yanhua's cosmic projection, and it was an incomplete version. Its power could not be compared to the complete cosmic projection. Even so, it was still far more powerful than the peak experts of the Great Tribulation of Universe. In the beginning, Duan Jipeng was not familiar with the control of the cosmic projection, so he did not use its full power. This allowed Mo Fengyu and the others to take advantage of the loophole and fall into a disadvantage. However, as time passed, Duan Jipeng became more and more familiar with the cosmic projection. Finally, he could control it as if it was his own arm. Suddenly, the huge cosmic projection lifted its right foot and stomped down hard. Its speed was so fast that it took almost the blink of an eye. The two early Great Tribulation experts who had been secretly attacking the cosmic projection's foot had no time to dodge and were directly stomped down. These two pitiful early-stage universe tribulation experts didn't even have the chance to let out a scream before they were crushed into powder by this stomp. Even their souls were completely annihilated under the tearing of the laws. Hiss. Chapter 4161. Get out of the way. Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder were the first to react. They shouted and quickly distanced themselves from the Dharma idol. After Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder's shout, the other surviving experts of the Great Tribulation of Universe finally reacted. They immediately used their movement techniques to escape. You think you can come and go as you please? Do you really think I'm easy to bully? Duan Jipeng shook his head and sneered. He was extremely nimble, as if he had turned into a killing machine. The huge Dharma idol waved its 4 limbs and moved extremely quickly. In the blink of an eye, another 4 or 5 cultivators were either trampled to death or slapped to death. The unluckiest guy was directly grabbed by Fa Xiong's hands and torn into 2 halves. Blood fell like rain, and it was very miserable. Among those who were killed, most were experts of the early and middle stages of the Great Tribulation of Universe. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Duan Jipeng and the green-robed elder landed in the air above a dense forest in the distance, looking warily at the Dharma idol that was on a killing spree. There were only 5 cultivators who had escaped with them, and all of them were at the late stage of the Great Tribulation of Universe or higher. Otherwise, the 3 of them might not have been able to escape. The 3 of them included Mo Liuhua and the black-robed elder who had been protecting Lai Rong. What a cunning guy! He deliberately pretended to be weak at the beginning so that we would take the bait and then kill us. Mo Fengyu was flustered and exasperated. Although this Dharma idol is incomplete, it's too powerful. It's not something we can deal with. Everyone, we won't keep you company. Of the 5 survivors, 3 of them were at the late stage of the Great Tribulation of Universe. They cupped their fists at Mo Fengyu and the others and left decisively. They didn't have a strong background, so it wasn't easy for them to cultivate to such a level. They didn't want to lose their lives here for nothing. For them, the gains didn't make up for the losses. In an instant, only 2 people were left with Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder. They were Mo Liuhua and the black-robed elder. Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder's expressions immediately turned ugly. They hadn't expected the final outcome to turn out like this. It was really beyond their expectations. However, they were very unwilling to let a cooked duck fly away. How could they be willing? But when they saw the Dharma idol not far away, their eyelids twitched and their hearts were full of dejection. Boom, boom, boom. Duan Jipeng strode forward, stopping when he was several dozen zhong away from Mo Fengyu and the others. Duan Jipeng's sharp gaze. And said indifferently, "Do you still want to fight? If you want to fight to the end, I'll keep you company." Mo Fengyu and the other 3 gnashed their teeth, their eyes filled with unwillingness. They did not withdraw their auras. Instead, they surged even more violently. You 2 of course. Fine, I'll grant to. Duan Jipeng's eyes shone with a sharp light as he strode towards Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder. From the heavens, of the great tribulation of the great Dai, to the end of universe. Fight. Mo Fengyu shouted and took out a bloodsaber. The blade of the bloodsaber was 7 feet long and the hilt was also 7 feet long. The entire saber was 14 feet long. Countless strange veins were drawn on the blade of the bloodsaber. These veins were like the meridians in the human body, pulsing rhythmically. This is the god-slaying bloodsaber, a rank 7 astral weapon fragment. It's extremely powerful. Rumor has it that when Mo Fengyu was in the late stage of the cosmic tribulation, he used this god-slaying bloodsaber to kill a peak expert of the cosmic tribulation. The green-robed elder looked at the bloodsaber in Mo Fengyu's hand in shock. He knew that this bloodsaber was the most precious treasure of the Witch God clan. For countless years, the Witch God clan had launched many realm wars against the nearby lower realms in order to worship this astral weapon. They had also used countless creatures from other realms as sacrifices to support this astral weapon. For this reason, the number of creatures that had died to this astral weapon was simply immeasurable. There were hundreds of millions of them. Elder Ji Yu, you don't have to hide it. I also know that you also have a rank 7 astral weapon fragment. You've killed a lot of people in order to support that astral weapon of yours. After taking out the god-slaying bloodsaber, Mo Fengyu glanced at the green-robed elder and spoke calmly. The green-robed elder frowned slightly. He hadn't expected Mo Fengyu to know so much about him. He actually knew that he also had a rank 7 astral weapon fragment. Old friend, don't hesitate. If we can't defeat this person today, wouldn't all our efforts be in vain after we spent so much effort to break into this tomb? Are you willing to suffer a double loss? Mo Fengyu said with a frown. The green-robed elder smiled bitterly. Of course I'm not willing. Forget it, forget it. I'll just fight it out with you. After all, we can't return empty-handed. With that, the green-robed elder clenched his right hand. At some point, a wooden staff had appeared in his palm. The wooden staff's shape was uneven and twisted. It looked like an irregular wooden staff made of many twigs intertwined together. The wooden staff's appearance could be described as very ugly. The only thing worth noticing was that at the center of the semicircle at the top of the wooden staff, there was a pearl that flickered with gray light. The pearl released a gray light that would occasionally reveal all sorts of sinister ghost faces. It would also emit a terrifying howl that shook one's soul. Deadwood ghost staff? So that's in your hands. No wonder you've been hiding it all this time. Mo Fengyu chuckled as he looked at the wooden staff in the green-robed elder's hand. The green-robed elder's face was covered in frost. Mo Fengyu, cut the crap. Let's attack together. As long as we defeat this person, we'll split their belongings 50-50. Mo Fengyu frowned slightly. Although he felt that the green-robed elder was a little greedy, he didn't say anything. After all, he had to join forces with the green-robed elder now. 50-50 was considered fair. Blood tied against the heavens. Mo Fengyu wielded the enormous god-slaying blood blade that was even longer than he was and slashed upwards. Instantly, a blood-colored blade light soared into the sky. At first, it was just a wisp of blood-colored light, but it grew more and more dazzling. In the blink of an eye, it dyed the entire sky. At this moment, it was as if the entire sky was filled with the color of blood. As the blood-colored light soared into the sky, the strong stench of blood instantly swept through the surroundings and disturbed the mind. Chapter 4162. Boom. The blood-red saber light that seemed to be able to cut down the sky finally collided with the huge palm. The terrifying aftershock of the collision made the entire world seem to collapse. Immediately after a short exchange, the blood-red saber light suddenly fell into a disadvantage. The terrifying blood-red light was immediately suppressed by the golden light. Elder Jiyu, what are you still hesitating about? Why aren't you attacking? Mo Fengyu grunted and suddenly shouted at the green-robed old man, who was hesitating beside him. The green-robed elder took a deep breath. Knowing that this was not the time to hesitate, he took out the withered wood ghost staff. The withered wood ghost staff left his hand and swept toward the huge palm of the Dharma idol in the sky. The pearl at the top of the staff released a strong gray light. The blazing gray light rolled and condensed together, revealing a sinister-looking shadow that was no weaker than the Dharma idol. At a closer look, this shadow was formed by many sinister-looking little ghosts. In the end, it became the all-powerful Great Ghost. The Great Ghost let out a shrill roar. It raised its hands, grabbed the suppressed blood saber, and suddenly raised it. The Dharma idol's right hand, which originally had an overwhelming advantage, was lifted by the combined power of the two rank 7 astral weapon fragments. It could no longer be pressed down. The Great Ghost stepped through the air. Its right hand pulled back, and the blood-red saber light formed by the god-slaying blood saber turned into its blood saber. It nimbly tangled with the Dharma idol. The shockwaves caused by the battle between the two huge figures were extremely terrifying. The aftershock of each collision could cause the earth to crack, the sky to dim, and time to reverse. Many of the onlookers had no choice but to retreat far away because of this. They watched the battle between the two huge figures with fear in their eyes. In Duanjipeng's Chenkuan world, Zhuoan silently watched the combined power of the two rank 7 astral weapon fragments. He licked his lips and said, "Brother Duan, I want these 2 rank 7 astral weapon fragment. Can you take them?" Duan Jipeng was focused on dealing with the great ghost that was attacking with the blood saber. When he heard Zhuowen's words, he was slightly startled at first and then nodded. He did not ask the reason. In his opinion, he was the one who had benefited the most from entering the tomb, but the one who had contributed the most was Zhuowen. Therefore, he had always felt guilty. Now, since Zhuowen wanted these 2 rank 7 astral weapon fragments, he naturally had to snatch them and give them to Zhuowen by any means. The huge Dharma idol's aura suddenly changed. Duan Jipeng originally wanted to play around, so he did not use his full strength. Now, he didn't need to hide anymore. He directly pushed the power of the cosmic form to the maximum. Blazing golden light filled the Transcendence Avatar's body as the precepts began to circulate at an extremely fast speed. The power of the precepts that had been set off around it had also become much more terrifying. Under Duan Jipeng to the Dharma idol to S to the Dharma idol. To the great to the sky to the great to the idol. The great ghost was not to be outdone. It roared at the sky and slashed out the blood saber in its hand. It was not afraid of the Dharma idol's attack at all. Suddenly, the huge golden palm print and the blood saber collided again. This time, the scene of them being evenly matched did not repeat itself. The huge palm print smashed the blood saber into pieces and then slammed into the great ghost's chest. The great ghost screamed. Countless grey ghost faces on its huge body screamed in unison. Then, because these ghost faces felt a fatal threat, they quickly broke free and left the great ghost's body. The Dharma idol was expressionless. It lifted the great ghost and slammed its left hand in front of the great ghost. Each palm was filled with terrifying power, causing the great ghost to scream in fear. Shrill screams continued to be heard. The Dharma idol slammed out 7 palms with great momentum. The great ghost finally could not bear it and collapsed, turning into countless grey mist. In the middle of the grey mist, the withered wood ghost staff at its core revealed its true form. The Dharma idol picked up the withered wood ghost staff and threw it into Duan Jipeng's hands. Duan Jipeng chuckled and looked at the withered wood ghost staff in his hand, a trace of satisfaction in his eyes. After the Dharma idol finished off the great ghost, the blood saber that had been knocked to the ground wailed and turned into a beam of bloodlight, flying toward Mo Fengyu. Duan Jipeng sneered. He suddenly raised his foot, and the huge foot formed by countless laws stomped down heavily. The Godslayer blood blade was stomped deep into the ground, and cracks appeared on the blade's surface. Poochie. After the withered wood ghost staff and the godslaying blood saber were defeated by Duan Jipeng, Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder, who were originally closely related to the 2 weapons, turned pale and vomited blood. They were suffering from the backlash of their respective star weapons. So he didn't use his full strength from the beginning. Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder were shocked. Their eyes were filled with fear and unwillingness. Duan Jipeng chuckled and took the god-slaying blood saber out of the ground. At this moment, the god-slaying blood saber lying in the Dharma idol's hand trembled continuously. It was completely obedient and didn't dare to run anymore. "Brother Zhuo, you can have these 2 astral weapons." Duan Jipeng sent the 2 star weapons into the Qiankuan world. In the Qiankuan world, Zhuowen silently looked at the withered wood ghost staff and the god-slaying blood saber in front of him. These 2-star weapon fragments, which were originally arrogant and unruly, were now trembling obediently and didn't dare to resist at all. Zhuowen didn't stand on ceremony with Duan Jipeng. These 2-star weapon fragments were indeed very useful to him. After putting away the 2-star weapon fragments, he looked outside, still paying attention to Mo Fengyu and the others. At this moment, Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder were seriously injured. Even their star weapon fragments had been taken away from them. This made their expressions very ugly. Mo Liuhua and the black-robed elder were both terrified. Duan Jipeng was really too terrifying. Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder had taken out their rank 7-star weapon fragments and still weren't his match, let alone the 2 of them. "Ancestor, are you all right?" Mo Liuhua hurriedly went over to support the tottering Mo Fengyu and asked worriedly. Mo Fengyu waved his hand, But his expression was so gloomy that it could almost drip water, but more than that, it was fear. Do the two of you still want to fight? Duan Jipeng didn't press the advantage. Instead, he hovered in the Dharma idol and looked down at Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder. Although his gaze was focused on Mo Fengyu, his divine consciousness carried a terrifying pressure that spread out in all directions. In the distance, the cultivators hiding in the dark all felt Duan Jipeng's display of power and trembled all over. The last bit of hope in their hearts disappeared. Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder were the representatives of this group, representing their highest battle strength. Moreover, these two had even taken out their rank 7-star weapon fragments, but they were still easily crushed by Duan Jipeng. Chapter 4163. Damn, it won't end like this, will it? Ziyu was dumbfounded. He was also shocked by Duan Jipeng's sudden display of power. More than a dozen Great Tribulation experts had joined forces, but they had been defeated just like that. More than half of them had been killed, including Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder. Even when he had played all his cards, he was still easily crushed. Xu Ju sighed lightly and said, "The outcome has been decided. I never expected that man surnamed Duan's comprehension ability would be so high. He was actually able to control the cosmic phenomenon of the Tomb Master so skillfully in such a short period of time. Brother Xu Ju, you mean that we don't have any chance?" Ziyu asked tentatively. Xu Ju shrugged and said, "You're right, we really don't have a chance. Unless you call those old fellows from your clan over to support you, you might be able to snatch it." Ziyu smiled embarrassedly. "Xu Ju, you must be joking. If I tell this to those old fellows in the clan, not only will they not help me, but they will also laugh at me, thinking that I even went to such a low-level place as the Tomb of the Universal Law. This was too degrading. Then wouldn't my reputation be ruined?" Xu Ju faintly smiled. He and Ziyu were both heaven's favored children and had their own pride. Although the forces behind each of them were extremely powerful, they would never easily rely on the power of their respective forces. After all, a young eagle that grew up under protection would be unable to become successful in the end. Only by experiencing true tempering would it be able to temper a pair of truly solid and reliable wings and freely soar above the 9 heavens. "What should we do next? Are we just going to leave here empty-handed?" Ziyu said somewhat uninterestedly. "Of course not. I'm very interested in Zhuowen. Back when he was only at the late ancient star transformation stage, he wasn't any weaker than me. Even the guy who ranked first on the heaven domain list didn't have such potential. As far as I know, Zhuowen's potential is comparable to that of the original. He must be the guy who caused a sensation on the outer realm heavenly ranking." Xu Ju narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself. "Brother Xu Ju, are you talking about Sakyamuni? You think too highly of this Zhuowen. He can't be compared to Sakyamuni. He was simply a monster. It's unprecedented and will never be replicated." Ziyu frowned. These two geniuses who were ranked in the top 5 of the Outer Realm leaderboard could not help but feel heavy pressure whenever they thought of Sakyamuni's name. Back then, this name was like a dazzling star, rising among the younger generation in the Outer Realm. He had only used 3 days to ascend to first place on the Outer Realm heavenly ranking because he had consecutively challenged the top 3 powerhouses on the Outer Realm heavenly ranking, defeating 1 person in 1 day and 3 in 3 days. Since then, he had become the undisputed number 1 genius on the Outer Realm heavenly ranking. It was said that even the archaic Heavenly Tao Academy was alarmed because of this. Many old fellows were paying close attention to this new rising star, and they frequently extended olive branches. What was even more shocking was Sakyamuni's cultivation speed. He had only been ranked first on the World Beyond Realms heavenly list for less than half a year before he disappeared from the list. There were only 2 reasons for disappearing from the list. One was that he had been defeated and his ranking had been replaced. The second was that he had broken through to the Great Carefree Realm and was automatically erased from the list. Sakyamuni had obviously not been defeated. He had broken through and smoothly entered the Great Carefree Realm. He automatically left the Outer Realm heavenly ranking. Xu Ju remembered that this was only 3 years ago. With Sakyamuni's terrifying cultivation speed, his cultivation might have gone even further now. He was far ahead of them, the so-called geniuses who were still stuck at the peak of Gushing. This was also why Ziyu was so surprised when she learned that Shuju had compared Zhuoan to the Nti Shiva. In Ziyu's eyes, Sakyamuni was definitely the strongest genius in the history of the Outer Realm Heavenly List. It was almost impossible for his peers to surpass him. He had already become a legend on the Outer Realm Heavenly List and was irreplaceable. Shuju smiled faintly. I have seen Sakyamuni once. I can feel that this child's eyes are similar to Sakyamuni's in some sense. In addition, he is indeed powerful and extraordinary. That's why I compared him to Sakyamuni. Of course, the gap between him and Sakyamuni is not small. I only said that he has the potential. Why are you so anxious? Ziyu froze for a moment. Her face was slightly red. She muttered, so that's how it is. If that's the case, then I'm relieved. Come with me to meet them, maybe we can have a chance to cooperate with them, Shuju said unfathomably. Ziyu did not think too deeply about Shuju's words. She curled her lips and followed behind Shuju. At this moment, Zhuoan had already walked out of Duan Jipeng's Chenkuan world. He stood side by side with Duan Jipeng in front of Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder. Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder were both in a very sorry state. They looked at Zhuoan and Duan Jipeng in horror. They were no longer as aggressive as they were at the beginning. The two of you, we were rude before. This Mo apologizes to the two of you. To everyone's surprise, Mo Fengyu very straightforwardly bowed deeply to Zhuoan and Duan Jipeng, his expression sincere. Zhuoan looked at Mo Fengyu. He thought that this old fellow was really flexible. At the beginning, he was the most aggressive in shouting to kill. Now that he had already lost, he was even so straightforward in apologizing. His scheming was really deep. Many members of the Wushan clan also came forward. They followed Mo Fengyu and Mo Liuhua and knelt down to apologize to Duan Jipeng and Zhuoan. The green-robed elder smiled bitterly. He also knew that the winner was the king and the loser was the bandit. He sighed deeply and also bowed to apologize, hoping that they could forgive his rude behavior. Zhuoan smiled and said, "The two of you, we can talk about this. After all, the two of you have given us 2 pieces of a tier 7-star weapon as an apology gift. If we still don't forgive you, we will be asking for a yard after taking an inch." Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder's expressions immediately turned ugly. They had originally planned to give in and pay a price to get their pieces back from Duan Jipeng. After all, a tier 7-star weapon fragment was actually a clan treasure to them and could not be easily lost. But Zhuoan's words had stopped them from asking for the tier 7-star weapon fragment back. Hey, the two of you don't look too good. Are you not satisfied with my proposal? Zhuoan smiled faintly. No. Little brother Zhuo is right. The tier 7-star weapon fragment is indeed our apology gift. Mo Fengyu hurriedly said. The green-robed elder also had no objections. They could only grit their teeth and swallow it. While Duan Jipeng was talking to the green-robed elder and Mo Fengyu, the black-robed elder frowned slightly. He slowly retreated, planning to leave. Chapter 4164. Where do you think you're going? Duan Jipeng looked indifferently at the black-robed elder. The black-robed elder hurriedly cupped his hands towards Duan Jipeng and said in a low voice, "Sir, what else do you want? I'm from the newer clan. You can't afford to offend me." Duan Jipeng laughed loudly, but his gaze grew colder. The newer clan? I can't afford to offend you. Are you threatening me? Duan Jipeng said sinisterly. The black-robed elder frowned and said, I'm not threatening you. I'm just reminding you. Although we had some misunderstandings before, now that the misunderstanding has been resolved, we don't owe each other anything. I'll take my leave first. The black-robed elder clearly didn't want to stay in front of Duan Jipeng for long. After he finished speaking, he sped up his retreat. However, the black-robed elder's expression changed drastically. An enormous palm that radiated blazing golden light swept through the air and smashed heavily towards the black-robed elder. You! The black-robed elder was furious. He immediately summoned his universe world, and waves of terrifying tribulation energy surged out. At the same time, he summoned his life artifact, a halberd that flickered with purple lightning. Boom! The golden palm that contained numerous laws and grand dows smashed down like a mountain. Then, the black-robed elder was shocked to discover that his universe world had been directly torn apart, and then his life artifact had been shattered. Poochie! The black-robed elder spat out a mouthful of blood and knelt on the ground. The energy in his body surged as he raised his hands to the sky, barely resisting the palm. However, from his increasingly pale face, it could be seen that he probably wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Duan Jipeng put his hands behind his back and coldly glanced at the black-robed elder who was struggling on the verge of death. He said indifferently, "Can you leave without my permission?" At this moment, Shuju and Ziyu flew over. They didn't even look at the black-robed elder. Instead, they looked at Duan Jipeng and Zhuoan. "Brother Duan, brother Zhuo, what a good move. Even I was tricked by you. This time, I accept my defeat wholeheartedly." Shuju shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Brother Shuju is too polite. We just stumbled upon it by accident. Brother Shuju, on the other hand, came up with a lot of strategies that made us tired of dealing with them. We are the ones who are sincerely convinced by you." Shuju and Ziyu's backgrounds weren't weak. The two of them didn't seem to have any ill intentions, so Zhuowen naturally wouldn't give them any face. Of course, if the two of them really tried to rob him like Mo Fengyu and the others, he would not be polite either. He would retaliate in kind. Duan Jipeng looked at Shuju and Ziyu with a trace of vigilance. However, his attitude was much better than Mo Fengyu's. After all, Shu and Ziyu, they've have you and s, there and their rees. Theys. S mean they have to have re haves have they haves. Are they? If they really wanted to join in the fight, even Duan Jipeng would have a headache. Shuju shook his head. He didn't care about Zhuowen's compliments. Just as he was about to speak, an angry voice came from behind him. "You're too presumptuous. How dare you suppress my newer clan? Now, let go of my people." Lai Rong had also come over. He was very dissatisfied with Duan Jipeng suppressing the black-robed elder, so he berated him. "Sorry. Not only do we dare to suppress your newer clan, but we also dare to kill you." Zhuowen's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Duan Jipeng grinned. He suddenly stomped his right foot. The giant Dharma idol lifted its foot and stomped on the black-robed elder. The black-robed old man, who had been having a hard time resisting the attack of the Fa Xiong's palm, was ruthlessly stomped by the sole of the foot. He completely lost the ability to resist, and with a miserable cry, he was ruthlessly pressed to the ground by the sole of the foot. Boom! Boom! The gigantic foot was lifted and brought down again. It actually stomped on the black-robed old man's body 3 times. At first, the black-robed elder still screamed, but there was no sound after that. When the Dharma idol lifted its foot, there was a huge hole in the ground. There was a pool of blood in the hole, a ghastly sight. When everyone saw the pool of blood, they were all terrified. How could they not know that the pool of blood belonged to the black-robed elder? There was no doubt that the latter had been stomped to the ground. Even his soul had not been able to escape. Lai Rong was also shocked by Duan Jipeng's ruthless methods. His mouth was wide open as he stared at the expressionless Duan Jipeng in disbelief. A chill rushed from the bottom of his feet to his head. These two guys were really too lawless. They clearly knew that they were from the newer clan, but they still dared to kill them. Mo Fengyu and the green-robed elder trembled in fear at this scene. They knelt on the ground again, not even daring to raise their heads. They were only people from a lower realm, while the black-robed elder was from a higher realm. If the newer clan could kill him without any hesitation, if Duan Jipeng wanted to kill them, he would not show any mercy. Now, they were praying that Duan Jipeng would not vent his anger on them and spare their lives. However, they did not know that Duan Jipeng and the newer clan already had a life-and-death grudge. Duan Jipeng had wanted to kill Lai Rong and the black-robed elder for a long time, but he had never found the opportunity. Now that Lai Rong and the black-robed elder had delivered themselves to his doorstep, he naturally would not let them go. He's already dead. Now, it's your turn. Duan Jipeng slowly turned his head, his eyes filled with killing intent as he stared at Lai Rong. Lai Rong had a bad feeling. He wanted to run, but his legs were already trembling in fear. He actually froze on the spot for a moment. Duan Jipeng naturally did not care about what Lai Rong was doing. He had already struck out with his palm. The giant Dharma idol's mountainous palm descended from the sky and completely covered Lai Rong's body. Lai Rong did not even have the chance to scream before his soul was scattered by the Dharma idol's palm. He died without a burial place. After killing Lai Rong and the black-robed elder, Duan Jipeng withdrew his hand. He looked at the stiff Shu Ju and Ziyu and said heartily, "I've embarrassed myself. I've neglected the two Gongzi by killing two people who were in the way." Shu Ju and Ziyu waved their hands, but their expressions became much more serious. "May I know why the two of you have come to find us?" Zhuowen's gaze fell on Shu Ju as he suddenly asked. He was very clear that Shu Ju and Ziyu were true top geniuses on the outer realm heavenly ranking and had their own pride. He really did not believe that the two of them had come here specifically to befriend them. The two of them definitely had their own goals. Ziyu pursed her lips. She was a little unhappy with Zhuowen's attitude, but she did not say anything. She just looked at Shu Ju. Chapter 4165. Why can't I understand what you're saying, Sir Shu Ju? I really didn't find the map fragment you mentioned in Liu Yang's tomb, Zhuowen said calmly. Shu Ju smiled slightly, as if victory was within his grasp. Brother Zhuo, let's not beat around the bush. I'll be honest with you. I also have a remnant map of the ruins with me. You have to know that after the map fragment of the ruins was torn apart, it was scattered everywhere. Sir Shu Ju. With just one map fragment, I might not be able to find the exact location of the ruins and the way to enter it. When he spoke up to here, Shu Ju glanced at Zhuowen, who had an indeterminate expression on his face, and he continued, Brother Zhuo, you're a smart person, and you're able to discern that with my identity, there's utterly no need for me to risk my life and fight for a tomb with all of you. To put it bluntly, I'm not even interested in the treasures of a cosmic Laksana expert, let alone the tomb of a cosmic Laksana expert. Zhuowen frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, So, young Master Shu Ju, you came all the way to the divine Magus realm and joined the battle for the tomb, all for the sake of that map fragment. Shu Ju nodded and said frankly, Brother Zhuo, your strength and talent have caught my eye. This time, I was indeed one step behind, and I accept my loss wholeheartedly. You don't have to worry about me snatching the map fragment from you. No matter what, my background is not good. It was impossible for Fan to do such a thing. I just want to cooperate with Brother Zhuo. Of course, before we cooperate, I have to remind Brother Zhuo that the map fragment you have is very troublesome. Once outsiders find out about it, there will be a lot of trouble. Liu Yang is a good example. If Brother Zhuo knows that he can't protect the map fragment, you can also make a deal with me. I will naturally give you a satisfactory price. Zhuowen smiled faintly. I'm not interested in a deal, but I'm interested in the cooperation you mentioned. If young Master Shu Ju sincerely wishes to cooperate, then this Zhuo may not refuse. Zhuowen knew that he could not hide the matter of the map fragment from Shu Ju, so he openly admitted it. Shu Ju was right. It was indeed very difficult for him to find the ruins since he only had a single map fragment. On the other hand, if Shu Ju had the other map fragment, then cooperating with him wasn't a bad idea. A wisp of a smile appeared on the corners of Shu Ju's mouth, and he laughed loudly as he patted Zhuowen on the shoulder and said, Then let's have a pleasant cooperation. Ziyu was a little puzzled as she looked at Shu Ju and Zhuowen, who had unknowingly put their arms around each other's shoulders. These two fellows' relationship had risen a little too quickly. However, his heart was filled with shock. How could he not have heard of the ruins that Shu Ju spoke of? That place was a treasure land that many cosmic manifestations coveted. Even those old fellows with the cultivation of Nigu starlight coveted it. However, the remains were simply too mysterious. For countless years, no one had been able to find the entrance to the remains. There was only a rumor that said, if you want to enter the remains, You must first obtain the map. He knew that Shu Ju possessed a fragment of the map of the ruins, but he did not know that there was actually another fragment of the map in the tomb of the unknown Magus god world. With Ziyu's status, she wouldn't care about what happened in a low-level realm like the Wu god realm. It was even more impossible for her to travel thousands of miles to participate in the so-called tomb battle. Wasn't the reason why she came here because Shu Ju was here? Shu Ju was full of sinister tricks. If he made a move, he must have an ulterior motive. That was why Ziyu condescended to come to the Wu god realm and enter the tomb with a group of rogue cultivators and low-level realm cultivators to search for treasures. As expected, Shu Ju did not disappoint him. He came to this tomb with a strong purpose, and there was actually another incomplete map of the ruins inside. The battle for the tomb had come to an end. The group of cultivators who had originally planned to take advantage of Duan Jipeng and Zhuoan all left dejectedly after knowing that the outcome had been decided. They knew that there was no chance left, so they weren't willing to go against Duan Jipeng like moths to a flame and lose their lives in vain. Mo Faiyu, Mo Liuhua, and the green-robed elder were still kneeling in front of Duan Jipeng. They lowered their heads, not daring to look at Duan Jipeng. If Duan Jipeng didn't let them get up, they really didn't dare to get up. After all, Duan Jipeng was a madman who dared to casually kill Lai Rong of the Newer clan. They didn't dare to provoke him. Zhuoan and Shu Ju chatted happily for a while. Then Zhuoan looked at Mo Faiyu and the others who were still kneeling on the ground. "Brother Duan, you can let them get up now," Zhuoan said. Duan Jipeng nodded and dispersed his Dharma projection to let Mo Faiyu and the others get up. Mo Faiyu and the others hurriedly expressed their gratitude, their eyes filled with gratitude. This was especially true for Lu Yingying. She looked at Zhuo Wen with a complicated expression. She never thought that the Battle of the Tombs would end in such a way. It was truly beyond her expectations. "Brother Zhuo, how do you want to deal with these people?" To Mo Faiyu and the others' shock, Duan Jipeng actually turned to Zhuoan rather politely and asked Zhuoan for his opinion on how to deal with them. Instantly, Mo Faiyu, the green-robed elder, Lu Yingying, and the others all looked at Zhuoan anxiously, their eyes filled with unease. If Zhuo Wen said a sentence to directly kill them, perhaps Duan Jipeng would really go on a killing spree. "All you need to do is swear an oath to the heavenly Tao that you will never go against Brother Duan and me, and your lives won't be in danger," Zhuoan said with a smile. Mo Faiyu and the others were startled, then hurriedly swore an oath to the heavenly Tao and bowed to Zhuoan. "That's right. My master, Shan Lingyun, is still in Sorcerer God City. When I return to Sorcerer God City, I will go to Sorcerer God City to see her. I don't think you will stop me this time," Zhuoan said indifferently. Mo Faiyu and the others wiped the sweat from their foreheads and glared fiercely at Lu Yingying. They hurriedly said, "How would we dare to stop young Master Zhuo? If anyone dares to stop me, I will be the first to kill them." Lu Yingying trembled in fear. She naturally heard the warning in Mo Faiyu's words, and a trace of regret and bitterness appeared in her heart for no reason. Zhuo Wen just smiled and didn't say anything. Next, Zhuoan, Duan Jipeng, Shu Ju, and the others returned to Sorcerer God City. Mo Faiyu and the others followed behind them respectfully, not daring to act rashly. After returning to Sorcerer God City, Mo Faiyu hurriedly invited them into Sorcerer God City. However, Zhuoan, Shu Ju, and the others did not plan to enter Sorcerer God City. This made Mo Faiyu breathe a sigh of relief. Speaking of which, although he did not dare to offend Duan Jipeng, he did not want them to enter Sorcerer God City so openly. Chapter 4166. On the balcony of a luxurious inn, Zhuoan silently watched the departing figures of Mo Fengyu, the green-robed elder, and the rest. Mo Fengyu and the rest are in a dilemma. They don't dare to offend you, much less the Newer clan. Now, they're in a difficult situation. Shu Ju came to Zhuoan's side and watched Mo Fengyu's departing group. He smiled faintly. "That's why I didn't make things difficult for them. At the same time, I reminded them of my relationship with Shan Lingyun. I'm sure they won't dare to disrespect my master in the Holy Witch City," Zhuoan said indifferently. Shu Ju smiled and said playfully, Brother Zhuo, I think the newer clan will soon receive news that you've killed Lai Rong. How do you plan to deal with the newer clan's revenge? Zhuowen looked at Xu Ju with a faint smile. Brother Xu Ju, you and I are now partners. We should treat each other with sincerity, right? Can't you help me cover up the matter with the newer clan? Zhuowen knew that Xu Ju had an extraordinary background. Perhaps Xu Ju could help him cover up the fact that they were the murderers of Lai Rong. That would save him a lot of trouble. Xu Ju shook his head. Brother Zhuo, we haven't even started working together and you're already thinking of using me. Aren't you being a little too greedy? I can help you cover up the fact that you killed Lai Rong, but why should I help you? You do have the map fragment that I need, but you have to know your limit. I'm working with you because you have a map fragment, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean anything. But that doesn't mean that I need to help you with everything. Also, Brother Zio and I will be leaving the witchcraft realm tomorrow and returning to our realm. I hope that Brother Zhuo can protect the map fragment in your hands during this period of time. If it falls into someone else's hands, then we won't have it. There's a need for cooperation. With that, Xu Ju returned to the inn. Zhuowen frowned and said with a self-deprecating smile, "It seems that I've thought myself clever." Xu Ju was much smarter than he had imagined. It was impossible for him to use Xu Ju for a mere map fragment. The next day, Xu Ju and Ziyu bid farewell to Zhuowen and left the witch god realm. Inside the inn, Zhuowen and Duan Jipeng sat opposite each other. Brother Zhuo, I need to go into seclusion for a while to condense my cosmic form. I need to find a secluded place. It's best that we don't stay in the divine witch realm, Duan Jipeng said to Zhuowen in a serious tone. Zhuowen nodded and hesitated for a moment before he said, Brother Duan, wait for me for a day. Some of my friends are still in Shaman City, and I want to bring them out as well. After you make the breakthrough, I'm going to the newer realm to find someone. Duan Jipeng nodded. He already knew that Zhuowen's purpose was to go to the 7 Emotions and 6 Desires Mountain in the newer realm to find Moyan Wushang. After I make the breakthrough, I'll go with you. I won't be at ease if you go to the newer realm alone. Duan Jipeng smiled. Zhuowen was startled. Then his gaze softened a lot. He nodded and said, Then I'll have to trouble you, Brother Duan. Duan Jipeng laughed and said, With our relationship, there's no need to be so polite. Inside Shaman City, Mo Fengyu stood in the depths of a magnificent palace, holding a communication jade talisman in his hand. Ancestor, why have you called us here? Mo Liuhua and Lu Yingying walked in from outside the palace. Mo Fengyu had urgently summoned them, which made them very puzzled. Zhuowen plans to take Shan Lingyun and the other Hushu tribesmen away, Mo Fengyu said in a low voice. Mo Liuhua didn't care and said, These Hushu tribesmen are doing nothing in our Shaman City and wasting our resources. If Zhuowen wants to take them away, it'll save us a lot of trouble. Lu Yingying frowned. She wanted to ask them to stay, but when she thought of her own status, she could only purse her lips and say nothing. But the newer clan has also sent me a message, asking us to try our best to stall Zhuowen and the others. As long as we do well, the newer clan will reward us handsomely. Mo Fengyu's eyes flickered. This. Mo Liuhua hesitated. That might not be appropriate. Ancestor, the man with the surname Duan beside Zhuowen has unfathomable strength. If we anger him, I'm afraid it won't be good. Lu Yingying said hesitantly. Mo Fengyu was silent for a moment, and a trace of hesitation flashed in his eyes. He said in a low voice, But we can't afford to offend the newer clan. Ancestor, how long will it take for the newer clan to come here? Mo Liuhua suddenly asked. About 10 days. Mo Fengyu smiled bitterly. 10 days is too long. We can't delay Zhuowen for that long. In my opinion, the best choice is to stay out of it, Mo Liuhua said in a low voice. Mo Fengyu was silent for a moment, and then sighed. You're right. We can't afford to offend either Zhuowen or the newer clan. The best way is to stay out of it. Yingying, you'll be in charge of the Hushu clan. Try to get Zhuowen to leave the Divine Witch realm as soon as possible. Try not to spread the flames of war to the Divine Witch realm. After saying that, Mo Fengyu waved his sleeves, sighed, and entered the deepest part of the palace. Mo Liuhua and Lu Yingying looked at each other and smiled bitterly. It seemed that this was the only choice they had now. Zhuoan and Duan Jipeng left Divine Witch City and came to the forest in front of the endless mountains behind Divine Witch City. Zhuoan had contacted Mo Fengyu long ago, and Mo Fengyu guided them to this forest. They would bring Shan Lingyun and the other Hushu clan members to meet up with him here. Zhuoan and Duan Jipeng didn't have to wait for long before they discovered that a huge circle of light had appeared in the sky above the forest. Many figures appeared in the circle of light. Among the many figures, the leader was a young woman with a graceful figure. Beside this young woman was a little lowly with an exquisite face that looked like it was carved from jade. Zhuo Wen first looked at the young lady with a graceful figure. He naturally recognized that this young lady was Shan Lingyun's aunt, Lu Yingying. However, Zhuoan didn't give Lu Yingying any face. His gaze was indifferent. However, when his gaze landed on the little lowly beside Lu Yingying, the corners of his mouth curled into a rather happy smile. Master. Zhuoan looked at the little girl and called out with a smile. The moment the little girl saw Zhuoan, she broke free from Lu Yingying and rushed into Zhuoan's arms. Lu Yingying looked at the little girl who was interacting with Zhuoan, and the complicated look in her eyes became even more intense. A bitter smile appeared on her face. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.